Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Monday, December 4 meeting of the Ann Arbor City Council. If you're able, please rise and join us for a moment of silence, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Would our clerk please call the roll of council?
Councilmember Dish.
Here.
Councilmember Harrison.
Here.
Councilmember Song. Absent. Councilmember Watson.
Here.
Councilmember Medina.
Here.
Councilmember Ghazi Edwin.
Here.
Mayor Taylor.
Here.
Councilmember Iyer.
Here.
Councilmember Ackman.
Here.
Councilmember Briggs.
Here.
Councilmember Cornell.
Here.
We have a quorum.
May I have a motion, please, to approve the agenda? Moved by Councilmember Watson, seconded by Councilmember Dish. Discussion of the agenda. May I have a motion, please, to move the consent agenda with the exception of CA6 to immediately after the introduction from our Independent Community Police Oversight Chair?
So moved.
Moved by Councilmember Adina, seconded by Councilmember Dish. Discussion? All in favor? Opposed? The agenda is amended. Further discussion of the agenda as amended. All in favor? Opposed? The agenda is approved. Do we have communications today from our city administrator?
No, Mayor.
Thank you. We now have an introduction, that is to say, a communication from the chair of our Independent Community Police Oversight Commission, Chair Carter. Chair Carter, we believe you're on the phone.
Stephanie Carter.
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Good evening, Mayor Taylor and council members. Okay. I wanted to first let you know that okay, I think I have it. So, again, good evening. Your Independent Community Police Oversight Commission had a panel to interview the candidates for our new police chief. We did interview all 4 of the candidates, and we enjoyed the process, and we notified the city administrator of the results of our interviews. We also want to let you know that 4 of our commissioners, in an effort to continue to educate ourselves, recently attended the annual conference of NACO. You may have heard of that. That is the National Association for Civilian Oversight of Law Enforcement. And that conference was held in Chicago last month. It was a 4-day conference, and we had a number over the days, a number of sessions informing us about police oversight across the country. We also, by the way, had an opportunity from the Oversight Commission from East Lansing. And so we met with them, and we had a good discussion about some of the things that both of our communities face. We have our committees that are hard at work. We're catching up on our complaint review process. And at our last meeting, we did finalize documents that we're going to be using for review and reporting out. We do expect to have our annual report for 2023 to you by the end of January of 2024. And we do anticipate that report will include some recommendations for policy changes. We also have a communications committee working, and they are working to make the community aware of our work and encourage a dialogue with the community. And we are preparing and have been in the process of preparing a list of individuals and organizations that will be on our email list so that when we have, as we do often, communications to go out to the community, that's where we will begin. I do encourage anyone listening, all of the community, if you have organizations or if there are individuals who wish to receive information about ICPOC when it goes out, please contact our office and we will add you to that email list. If there are no questions, I have nothing further.
Thank you, Chair Carter.
very much.
Thank you. May I have a motion, please, to approve the consent agenda with the exception of CA6, moved by Councilmember Udina, second by Councilmember Dish. Discussion of the consent agenda. All in favor? Opposed? The consent agenda with the exception of CA6 is approved with 10 council members present, thus satisfying the 8-vote requirement with respect to CA3 and CA6. We now come to public comment general time. I'll deviate very briefly from the recitation of the rules with respect to council comment general time, which, although I will get to them in a moment, to say briefly this. Without knowing, I suspect as a result of looking on social media that some members of the community are here under the impression that council members are indeed bringing forward a resolution. That impression is and has been mistaken. The members will not today, and as I understand it, do not intend to bring a resolution of that nature. That is to say, and I wish to state further, that folks here are welcome at City Council. We are now at our public comment general time. This is an opportunity for members of the public to speak to council and the community who have signed up in advance. The City Council meeting is a public meeting where the City Council does the municipal work of Ann Arbor. Consistent with the Open Meetings Act, we have set aside a portion of our meeting for public comment at the beginning, and then a portion at the end. The rules of those public comment are these. The first 15 persons on the public comment list will have, and who are present and available when it is their turn to speak, will have the opportunity to speak in order. If the first 15 people complete their speech within 45 minutes, then we'll continue through the queue until we reach 45-minute mark. After the 45-minute mark, we will continue with our meeting, running through the entirety of the remaining of the agenda. After the bulk of the meeting is completed, we will then have public comment overflow time, where persons who have signed up in advance, who are on the list, will, in order, present and when available, if their name is called, when their name is called, they will then have the opportunity to speak at that time. And to be clear, so that folks understand, that means that if you are speaker, say after 16, 17, or 18, it is therefore unlikely that you will have the opportunity to speak at this meeting in advance of the balance of the meeting. Your time to speak at the meeting is set aside for overflow after the balance of the meeting has concluded. In all instances, speakers have 3 minutes in which to speak. In person, there is a time clock here. Online, the clerk will notify you when your 30 seconds are remaining, and of course the clerk and I will notify you when your time has expired. In each case, when your time has expired, please conclude your remarks and cede the floor. Speakers, we can have only one person speaking at once, and speakers are not authorized to designate or allocate their time to others. Our first speaker today is Elizabeth Hunter.
Hi, Elizabeth Hunter. Money and power, that's what it's about here at City Council. Well, a few years back, Lee Graydon said it a different way. He said money in buildings. Well, now the mayor has everything all tied up in a neat package with his new Political Action Committee, or PAC, P-A-C, money, power, and buildings. How tone deaf have we gotten in Ann Arbor after so many years of a national rallying cry to get money out of politics? But many of our politicians here might be a bit tone deaf. Follow the money, that should be our city slogan. Well, here's an old song with new lyrics. Is she really going out with him? Well, there she is. Let's ask her. Betty, is that the mayor's campaign t-shirt you're wearing? Mm-hmm. Gee, it must be great to be chummy with him. Mm-mm. By the way, where'd you meet him? I met him at the Green Fair. He turned around and smiled at me. You get the picture? Yes, we see. That's where I felt for the leader of the pack. My folks were always putting him down. They said he came from the wrong part of town. What they mean when they say he came from the wrong part of town? They said his tales are tall, he's not progressive at all talk and no walk, the leader of the pack. One day my dad said, find someone new. I had to tell the mayor we're through. What'd he mean when he said, you better go find somebody new? Find someone who's not one of Christopher's chosen, nor to developers beholden. Yes, you could do better than the leader of the pack. Look out, look out, look out, look out! I feel so helpless, what can I do? The mayor now leads a pack that is new. He calls it Ann Arbor for everyone who is wealthy and powerful. Something like that, the leader of the pack. Local democracy, now it's all gone. Local democracy, now it's all gone. Local democracy, now it's all gone. Local democracy, now it's all gone.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Jeff Hayner.
I'm so excited to see a full house here tonight. I can't even tell you, it's great to have people interested in what's happening here on City Council. I'm here to speak tonight about patronage appointments, in general and in particular also. Since the time of kings, there's been patronage appointments, and for those of people who haven't heard of that, it's basically when someone does a lot of work for the person in charge, they give them a nice, sweet appointment so they can, do whatever. Sort of like a favor. Some people call it cronyism. It's been happening since the time of kings, and I experienced it under King John Hefia. I had a legitimate claim to an appointment on the Public Art Commission based on my Bachelor of Fine Arts degree and 20 years experience in public art. And it was withdrawn at the meeting because he said he didn't want to give me the taint of that he somehow supported me because he knew I was running for council in 2013, but he didn't do the same favor for Sally Hart Peterson, of course. She got her appointment. That's the money in buildings crowd, I guess, as the first speaker said. Now, not all mayoral appointments are patronage appointments, of course. Many folks who serve on our boards or commissions are interested, experienced, and they shouldn't all be patronage appointments because we have a check and balance system in place, unlike the kings of England and yore, that council has to approve these appointments. Now, what's a sure sign that it's a patronage appointment? Perhaps the appointee has no relevant experience. Perhaps they are on record as being obviously a patron or a donor or having done some other dirty work for the person in charge. Perhaps they constantly have to recuse themselves from the actual votes because they have a financial interest in the board and the outcome of the product, the board product on which they sit. Those are sure signs. Now, in particular, tonight we have an appointment a 5-year appointment to the Transit Authority for my former colleague, Councilmember Julie Grand. Now, in my brief time with her, only about half of you have had the have had I'll just say, the experience of working with her, and the other half you haven't, and that's the ones I want to speak to, because you haven't had the thrill of being in the back room there in closed session, or constantly seeing violations of our charter, violations of our council rules, violations of the Opens Meetings Act, so much so that it got letters from myself to the city attorney and the attorney general's office of the state of Michigan. That's how bad it was. And don't go asking Taylor and Iyer about it, because they were also in those letters. So my last 20 seconds, I'd like to thank all the folks for coming out here tonight. And if I could turn around and apologize in person for not bringing a resolution that says we are against military aid to Israel when I was on council, I'd like to do that now. But I see you eye to eye, and I apologize for that. And more power to you. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Naznid Mahmood.
Hello, council members. So I'm here because I was a resident of Ann Arbor until recently for 11 years. What brought us to Ann Arbor was the diversity. I chose Ann Arbor over all other places, and I was inspired, even on my home search, to find houses that were part of the Underground Railroad, and I thought it was the most blessed place to be. I was very happy here, raising my children, having them go through school. I had no regrets. We moved for other reasons recently, but I'm here to urge the council for a ceasefire resolution, because this place needs to stand on the right side of history like it has in the past. The reasons for a ceasefire, I'm a pediatric neurologist, and there's an incredible loss of life going on. 6,000 children equates to, and that is an old number, 800,000 American children. If you equate it to the size of Gaza's population, to the size of the population here, I have no interest in anything else but to see this tragedy stop. And places like Ann Arbor have to lead the way in terms of what's morally right. There's nothing that diplomacy can't solve. There's nothing worth killing 700 civilians a day. There's nothing that can come of that. There's nothing that diplomacy can't solve. And so we need to stand for a ceasefire. With diplomacy, governments can be ousted, Hamas can be ousted, hostages can be released, Palestinians can have a future, Jews can live in peace in Israel. Everything can be solved if a first step of a ceasefire can be taken. And so what happens if you don't have a ceasefire, and what happens if you don't take a stand? You're on the wrong side of history then. You're on a shameful side of history among all other these genocides. I don't have to name them for you. And you will breed hate in your own community. You'll breed hate in your own community. I'm sorry, but Bernie Sanders was a hero of mine, and he did not stand for a ceasefire. And look at 3 Muslim students got shot in his own community. And so we need to not have that kind of hate spread here. We need to be the kind of community that brought us all here. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Rima Hassouneh.
Oops, thank you, everyone. I am here to call for a ceasefire, a permanent ceasefire. If you are neutral in situations of injustice, you have chosen the side of the oppressor. Those are the words of the moral giant Desmond Tutu. Since World War II ended, the horror of that, there has been a promise by the UN, never again, to make it illegal to target civilians, to use food, water, medicine as a weapon of war, never again. The promise that all people live with dignity, free from occupation and oppression, was supposedly true for everyone, except it seems for Palestinians. I am a Palestinian, very proud. I spoke to my father, who in 1948 became a refugee. He had to walk the trail of tears, a tortuous and torturous one for a 13-year-old boy who ended up in a refugee camp. I asked him to speak tonight, to call in, and he said to me, why? Why must I beg for the equality of Palestinian life? Why must I speak to your city council to tell them we are equally human? And he's right. That boy followed the yellow brick road to the United States, to Oklahoma. And he quickly saw similarities between this U.S. colonial society and what was happening to indigenous people and what was happening to Palestinians. I urge you to stand on the right side of history. In 2002, Ann Arbor City Council passed a resolution against the war in Iraq. It was a local, domestic, and moral issue then, and it remains one now. In fact, Councilwoman Heidi Cowan-Harrell pitched the resolution as a means to support local representatives in higher government who oppose the war. It is your role to make that pressure, to put pressure on our state and federal leaders who have lost their way in this wilderness. I'd like to close with a poem by Aaron Berry, Because of Us. This morning I learned the English word gauze, finely woven medical cloth, comes from the Arabic word ghazza, because the Gazans have been skilled weavers for centuries. I wondered then how many of our wounds have been dressed because of them, and how many of theirs have been left open because of us. So I call upon you now. You will speak for the us and do the right thing for Palestinians. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Caroline Sue.
Carolyn Shu is joining us on Zoom. You can press *6 to unmute your phone. Phone number 657, go ahead.
Hi, I'm an Ann Arbor resident, and I'd just like to echo other people's calls to urge that the Ann Arbor City Council join neighboring cities like Dearborn Heights, Hamtramck, and Detroit and support a resolution affirming Ann Arbor's commitment and support for congressional and worldwide calls for an immediate and permanent ceasefire in Gaza. I don't even have words to describe how horrified and devastated by the violence and death suffered by the people of Gaza in the past 8 weeks. And I hope that the city of Ann Arbor will reconsider their unwillingness to follow a precedent set by other Michigan cities and decide to speak up for people who are suffering and desperately need support before more lives are needlessly taken. I also hope that such a resolution would also commit to combating acts of anti-Arab, anti-Palestinian, Islamophobic, and anti-Semitic bigotry in Ann Arbor and uphold the rights of everyone in the Ann Arbor community to learn, work, pray, play, and engage in peaceful protest without threats, intimidation, doxing, injury, or death. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Alyssa Bose.
Last City Council meeting, many community members attended and voiced their desire for the City of Ann Arbor to pass a resolution in support of a ceasefire in Gaza. Council members have suggested that a resolution calling for a ceasefire is outside their jurisdiction. However, other city councils have listened to the voices of their constituents and have passed similar resolutions calling for a ceasefire, including our amazing neighboring cities, Dearborn Heights, Hamtramck, and Detroit. After the City Council meeting, community members connected, mobilized, and built on the collective knowledge of other cities who have passed resolutions calling for a ceasefire to create their own resolution. We have shared with council members this resolution crafted by the people, and the council members did not put it on the agenda. But as phrased in our mobilizing, although incorrectly stated by the mayor, we as constituents will present this resolution over and over again as many times, and we will keep you long and long every time. Until a resolution for an immediate ceasefire is passed in this council. And I will read the main points we have presented that are in the document right in front of you because I'm also not sure if they have been fully read by all of you. And there are plenty extra for anyone in this room who would like to read the resolution that constituents have collectively created. The first being Ann Arbor's support for the ceasefire as described in H.R. 786 and ask our councilpersons to join us in demanding an immediate ceasefire. Number 2, call for a reallocation of taxpayer-funded military aid money that has been sent to Israel for domestic and reallocate it to domestic infrastructure projects, including those in our own city. And 3, as the last person said, commit to combating anti-Semitism, Islamophobia, and anti-Palestinian and anti-Arab bigotry. Support the rights for people of both Israel and Palestine to live in peace and security, and uphold the right of those in Ann Arbor community and all the people to live, learn, work, play, and engage in peaceful protests without threats of intimidation, doxing, injury, or death. This is why it is relevant in this council. My fellow community members are in danger. My students and friends who are peacefully protesting have been arrested during their final seasons, thrown on the ground, and have faced police brutality and really harmful doxing. This resolution belongs here in this council because this country has federalist states. Small government action leads to big government action. Many other countries have been in support of this, but the U.S. as a whole has been gravely behind. A genocide is happening, and I'm hopeful that this city will be on the right side of history when the United States ultimately finally accepts it for what it truly is. This will be in our history books as a genocide. I hope you're on the right side.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Aisha Husani.
Good job. If Aisha Hujanani is on the phone, please raise your hand by pressing *9. Caller with the phone number ending in 969. Mayor, I do not see this caller on the Zoom call.
We'll hold for a moment. Our next speaker is Rachel Lipson.
Good evening. My name is Rachel Lipson. I'm an Ann Arbor resident, and I'm also an American Jew who came of age politically during the Iraq War. I attended my first protest against that war at 13, and I viscerally remember the horror I felt understanding that the torture in Abu Ghraib, the illegal detention in Guantanamo, and the indiscriminate killing of Iraqi civilians was being done in my name as an American by my government. 20 years later, I am experiencing deja vu. Except this time, I feel a degree of hope. I see people of conscience speaking out against the human rights violations and collective punishment occurring now in Gaza and the West Bank. The cities of Oakland, Detroit, Dearborn, and Hamtramck have endorsed permanent ceasefire resolutions, and I am here to ask the Ann Arbor City Council to do the same. Some may accuse me of partisanship. Why am I focusing on Israel? Didn't Hamas kill 1,200 people and take hostages? And the answer is yes, they did. Part of being Jewish in this time is to hold immense collective grief for the families who have been torn apart in Israel at the same time as I grieve for Palestinians. But my tax dollars do not go to Hamas. Our tax dollars in the billions go to Israel. Weapons manufactured here go on to destroy hospitals, churches, schools, homes, and mosques. Our government has stated that there is no line that Israel can cross that would stop our unconditional support, no matter how many international statutes of human rights are trampled and broken. I've heard people say that this strategy is the only way to keep Jews safe. And as a Jew, and as a human, I do want to be safe. But my safety is not more important or more valuable than the safety of any Palestinian. Jewish safety cannot be bought with the bodies of thousands of children. Yes. Jewish safety cannot be built upon the mass graves of another oppressed population. Jewish safety can only be achieved by standing in solidarity with all oppressed people and speaking up for the liberation and safety of everyone. That is tikkun olam, to repair the world. Violence begets violence. The events of October 7th were predicated on years of violent oppression. That oppression has been documented internationally as well as by Israeli human rights organizations such as B'Tselem. In turn, the likelihood of Israel destroying Hamas with bombs seems about as likely to be successful as we were at destroying the Taliban. What we are destroying are homes, hospitals, civilian infrastructure, leaving over 1 million people without shelter, without warm clothes, without clean water, without food, and without medicine. Even with a ceasefire, this is a humanitarian crisis. Let me remind you that Anne Frank did not die in a gas chamber. She died of a preventable disease crammed into unsanitary conditions at Bergen-Belsen. I am not a diplomat. I am not here to say whether a 1 or a 2 or a 50-state solution is best. But I am here to say that if the bombing does not stop, that question will be moot. I am here to say that endorsing a ceasefire is the most basic act of human decency that you can take to save thousands of lives. Our government is often wrong. It is our job to speak truth to power and tell our government to do better and to push our allies to do better. As our representatives, you can use the power we have vested in you to push the state and federal government to listen to our voices that they have so far ignored. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Deniz Gündüz.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. My name is Deniz Gündüz, and I'm calling for a ceasefire in Gaza. And I'm here to represent the Palestinians I'm currently watching online as they film their own genocide. Live on my Instagram feed. I'm here as their Muslim brother and sister. I'm here to suggest an alternative to the annual $2 million that Ann Arbor sends to Israel. $2 million in our tax dollars that could be used for things other than a genocide. I'm originally from Turkey, and my grandparents migrated to the Ann Arbor area in the 1970s. They were tailors here, and they had a shop in downtown on Main Street. And my grandmother had a shop on Liberty and State. And for 30 years, they worked very hard to take care of us. And they brought us here to Ann Arbor because of its diversity, its nature, its background, its tolerance. And everyone knows that Ann Arbor keeps calling you back. My family didn't come here as refugees. They didn't escape war, nor are they part of diaspora. They chose to come here because of acceptance and tolerance. I have lived in Ann Arbor almost my entire life, and I've attended countless protests, starting in my teenage years, all the way up until more recently in 2021, constantly protesting for Palestine. I've been protesting for Palestine for over 20 years. You have to ask yourself, why do we keep doing this on the streets of Ann Arbor? Why? For how many years? And more recently, I've brought my 11-year-old son to these protests. And now he's 14, and I brought him to the latest one. Is this now a family tradition? Is this a tradition? I don't want this to be a tradition. I'm teaching my son how to boycott. We don't go to McDonald's anymore. We don't go to Starbucks. And our tax dollars here in Ann Arbor need to stop going to Israel. Why? We are stepping over homeless on the same streets my family had tailoring shops. There are tent cities along Gallup Park, along the river. There are women who are sleeping under the bridges of 23 on Washtenaw. There are homeless people here who don't have services in Ann Arbor, while you send $2 million to Israel every year. 10 million. Michigan sends 10 million U.S. tax dollars to Israel every year, and that can go to serve the homeless here. We have refugees here that come from Afghanistan. Okay, if you don't want refugees here, stop creating them. Stop sending tax dollars. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Maddie Go.
Good evening. My name is Maddie Go, and I am a graduate student at the University of Michigan and a resident of Ann Arbor. The last city council meeting, I believe it was said that calling for a resolution for a permanent ceasefire in Gaza was outside of your jurisdiction. I am here today to ask you to reconsider your role and responsibility to the people of Gaza as American bombs continue to be dropped in the name of an apartheid state. As the number of people killed in this conflict surpasses 15,000, I ask you, what kind of community do you want to be a part of and to be responsible for? I know that I want to be part of a community where calling for an end to genocide is not considered a divisive act. I want to be part of a community that is able to say we did everything we could. I believe that it is our responsibility, your responsibility, to do something, anything, to save the lives that continue to be destroyed. The proposed resolution in support of the ceasefire in Gaza is just one way, the bare minimum, that you can uphold that responsibility. I call upon you to follow the footsteps of Detroit and Oakland and use your platform to denounce the gross injustice that continues every hour, minute, and second. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Josh Winston.
Good evening. My name is Josh Winston. I'm the rabbi at Temple Beth Emeth here in Ann Arbor. And I just want to take just a brief moment just to acknowledge the enormous amount of pain in this room. We all feel the enormous amount of pain in this room. I also want to share, though, some of the pain that I experienced. I was in Israel just 2 weeks ago. I heard from Meirav Gonen, who stood before me and my group. Her 23-year-old daughter, Romy Gonen, had been at the Nova Music Festival just a few miles from Gaza. Romy is the middle child in her family, 2 older siblings and 2 younger ones. She was working as a waitress before applying to college because she didn't know what she wanted to be yet. Like thousands of other young people, she went to the Nova festivals to celebrate peace, to dance, to be a community. Meirav, Romy's mother, was woken by a phone call at 6:35 in the morning. She was in bed a few hours north in the Galil, trying to sleep in on a Shabbat morning. Romy was crying. She was hysterical. It took Meirav 5 minutes to calm her down and understand what was going on. Romy had only recently arrived at the party just 2 hours before she woke her mother from her sleep, and rockets were firing. But it wasn't 5 or 6 like they were used to. The rockets weren't stopping. Meirav told her to look for shelter, but there wasn't any shelter. They were in a large field, an open space where they were dancing to music. Romy said to Meirav, "Mommy, I think I'm going to die. I'm afraid." Meirav told her, "You're not going to die. You're going to treat your wound, your bullet shot. You're going to be very calm. You're going to breathe very slowly. You're going to not be hysterical. You're going to breathe very slowly to calm yourself so you will not lose a lot of blood. Tie a tourniquet around your arm so you will not lose blood, Romy." There was a moment, Meirav told us, when she understood that nobody was coming, that nobody could help. Meirav decided, she started to tell Romy, "Romy, I love you. We love you. You are loved. You're not alone. I'm here with you. You're not alone. Everything will be okay." Meirav continued, "I started to tell her that what we'll do the day she comes home, we're going to go on trips. We're going to go to the coffee shop we were just at 4 days ago. There are many people here calling for a ceasefire, and I too wish for the bombs to end, for the war to stop. House Resolution 786 would leave Romy in Gaza, does not call for her release. We must call for the release of hostages. We must ensure that everybody has a fair share."
Thank you. Our next speaker is Sophie Alazim.
Caller with the phone numbers ending in 644. Go ahead.
Hi, good evening. I moved here last year from out of state to start a new career in Ann Arbor. Over 70% of the Democratic Party registered voters are calling for a ceasefire. Over 60% of registered Republicans are calling for a ceasefire. Most of the state of Michigan is calling for a ceasefire, yet our representatives are not. It is anti-democratic for our representatives to dismiss the call of the people. We trusted that our representatives would voice our opinions when we voted for them, and we will not vote for anybody who does not uphold the call of the people. Americans, and particularly the people of Michigan, do not want our tax money to fund a genocide. This is a genocide. And at 50%, the Gazan population is under the age of 15, meaning 10-year-olds, 8-year-olds. And 25% of the population is under the age of 5, meaning babies, 1-year-olds, 2-year-olds. This is a war on children. Let me give you the numbers. Over 6,000 children have been murdered by bombs funded by and shipped from the USA. These are children whose corpses have been identified with name, location, and ID number. For racist reasons, Palestinians are the only people on earth who have been forced to show the corpses of their dead children to the world and list their names in order to prove their humanity. 2,000 more children are reported missing under the rubble, reported by their families. 10,000 children are orphans. So the child is not dead, but his father is dead, and his mother is dead. Almost 1,000 children have lost limbs. Some have lost multiple limbs. Babies have lost limbs. These numbers are too high for us to comprehend. So imagine if you had lost one member of your family. You would grieve forever for that one person. Now imagine that everyone in your family had been killed. How would you feel? Now imagine that all of your neighbor's family had also been killed. Now imagine that all of your family, your neighbor's family, your whole neighborhood had been killed. Now your family, your neighbor's family, your whole neighborhood, your whole town had been killed.
30 seconds.
Wouldn't we condemn it if all the children of Ann Arbor were murdered within 1 month? The UN has called this a war on children. The Pope has said that this is beyond war, that Israel is committing terrorism. This is evil. Ceasefire means stop the bombing, stop the killing of children, stop the bloodthirst. If you don't call for a ceasefire, you're calling for more bombing, more killing, more blood. Bring forth a resolution, approve it, and stand against genocide.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Sierra Lambert. Sierra Lambert.
Mayor, she's supposed to be in person.
Ms. Lambert? Our next speaker then is Raven Marin.
My name is Raven, and I've come to speak on behalf of my Palestinian comrades. I'm calling for an immediate ceasefire to the Israel-Hamas war, a return of all the hostages inside Gaza, and a release of all Palestinian prisoners who are being held in detention without trial. Since October 7th, over 15,000 civilians have been killed in Gaza, the world's largest open-air prison, where its residents are forbidden from leaving. Over 2.7 million people are crowded into an area the size of Detroit. They have been cut off from vital supplies. Some have been resorted to drinking seawater to survive. 47.3% of Gaza's population is under 18. These aren't terrorists that are being bombed, these are innocent children. This is Anwi El-Dous. He was a 12-year-old gaming YouTuber who had dreams of hitting 100,000 subscribers. He was killed in an airstrike in mid-October. He was one of the 6,000 children who have been killed since the beginning of this war. Since the IDF resumed their ground invasion of Gaza, they have begun to push towards the south, telling civilians to leave the area. Where are they supposed to go? The sea? They've already left their homes and camps to the north. When will they be allowed to leave this prison of death? From the Nakba till now, Palestinians have been forcibly removed from their homes, murdered in the streets, and thrown into jails without proper trial. I would also like to remind those who are quick to call this movement anti-Semitic and remind those that this movement is not anti-Semitic. This is not a fight against Judaism. This is a fight against Zionism and imperialism. I condemn the acts of anti-Semitic violence that have been perpetrated against the Jewish community. There is no excuse for hate crimes. I was born in this city, I went to school here, and I love Ann Arbor. But to facilitate the progress of this great city, it is my civic duty to hold my political officials accountable. I'm calling for your support of the passage of a resolution calling for the immediate ceasefire in Gaza. We all like to think of ourselves as being on the right side of history. Well, now is our chance. When future generations look back on this event, will they be proud of our actions, or will they be disgusted by our gross negligence in these times of suffering? During the outbreak of the Russo-Ukrainian war, we were quick to condemn Russia's war crimes. But why, when is it black and brown children are being murdered, do we hesitate in our condemnation? When will we see these? When we saw the war crimes that were committed in Bucha, we were quick to call it an act of genocide. So why don't we do the same with Gaza? I'll conclude my speech with a quote from the late Nelson Mandela, a freedom fighter who fought against apartheid South Africa. The United Nations took a strong stance against apartheid, and over the years, an international consensus was built, which helped bring an end to this iniquitous system. But we know too well that our freedom is incomplete without the freedom of Palestinians. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Anam Shah.
Respected council members, I stand before you today hopeful that the city will stand on the right side of history. I stand before you as someone who for the past 58 days checks in daily with the people that I care about to ask if they have heard from their families in Palestine, to ask if their families are still alive. I stand before you as an alumna of the University of Michigan and a previous resident of Ann Arbor, who is utterly appalled at the aggressive doxing and harassment faced by current UMich students, as well as Ann Arbor residents, for simply exercising their First Amendment rights. I stand before you to remind you that this is not just some issue across the globe. This has directly impacted your constituents, and Ann Arbor residents' tax dollars are being used to fund these injustices and atrocities that we are all seeing unfold in real time in front of our eyes. I stand before you to remind you that there is no debate or discussion among accredited human rights organizations across the globe about what is being done to Palestinians. It is a war crime after war crime. It is apartheid. It is ethnic cleansing. It is genocide. I stand before you to remind you that the Leahy Amendments are human rights laws that prohibit the U.S. Department and State Department of Defense from providing military assistance, which is funded with our tax dollars, to foreign security force units that violate human rights with impunity. I stand before you to remind you that anyone who says that the freedom and safety of Palestinian people is a threat to their freedom and safety is not truly free, because their freedom and safety are contingent upon and rooted in the oppression and suffering of another people. I stand before you to urge you to join the chorus of cities and organizations, including the UAW and Michigan's very own Motor City, that are standing up for justice and speaking their truth to power. I stand before you to urge you to protect the First Amendment rights of your constituents that are being vilified for speaking out against injustice, to protect and reinforce the safety of your constituents. And despite the words of the mayor, I stand before you optimistic that the city that taught me how to expand my paradigms, the city that taught me how to think progressively, the city that taught me that vibrant, safe, and diverse community is possible, will also speak its truth to power by calling for an end to bloodshed, by calling for an immediate and complete ceasefire. I stand before you hopeful that this city will stand on the right side of history, and I sincerely hope that you don't prove me wrong. Thank you, and free Palestine.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Samira Sherry.
Good evening, council members. I'm here to take a stand with the Palestinian people. The people of Gaza have been carpet bombed for the last 58 days. The Israeli attack on Gaza has killed over 15,000 civilians, half of whom are women, children, entire families who today no longer exist. Israeli defense forces have used internationally banned and illegal white phosphorus chemicals that have rained down on civilians numerous times during the ongoing massacres. Using the most advanced weapons on defenseless civilians, bombs provided by us. On who? Young babies, children, men, women, and the elderly in Gaza. They are collectively being killed in record numbers, either from the Israeli bombs that are dropped on them consistently, or from hunger, sickness, or injuries obtained from the savage attacks and the lack of medicine needed to treat their wounds. As the world watches and the governments remain in complete silence, Israel is ethnically cleansing the people of Gaza. The Israeli Defense Minister, Yoav Gallant, said, and I quote, "We are dealing with human animals. We will cut off food, water, and fuel." Imagine 2 million people living under a densely occupied strip of land, half the size of Ann Arbor, in an open-air prison for 16 years, where their food is rationed and having to go through checkpoint to checkpoint on a daily basis. Their food is controlled, medicine is controlled, movement within the strip is controlled. They are monitored through surveillance cameras pointed into their homes. Israeli forces enter their homes in the middle of the night. Imagine the trauma the children and their parents have to endure. This is life under Israel's occupation since 1948. The people in Gaza are constantly targeted victims of an apartheid state, which treats them like animals even before October 7th. I ask you this question. Why is Israel given permission to carry out such atrocities while the world watches in silence as the mass murder of thousands of Palestinian civilians is taking place and life still continues while we idly watch? This must end. Lives must be saved. The heinous atrocities towards the men, women, and children in Gaza must end. It is incumbent upon every human being with an ounce of humanity, morality, dignity to call for an immediate ceasefire to put an end to this genocide. Here at home in the United States recently, hate crimes have been committed towards Palestinians. 3 students were shot for simply wearing a kufiya. An innocent 6-year-old Palestinian child from Chicago died after being stabbed 26 times, along with his mother who survived the attack. CARE organization received hundreds of complaints from Arab Americans who suffered Islamophobic threats. In fact, several days ago, my 9-year-old grandson, well, I just want to say, please don't be silent and complicit in this genocide. With your approval of this resolution, you are sending a clear message of peace to the world and saying to the innocent men, women, and children of Gaza, they are not, as the Israeli defense minister said, human animals, and that all innocent lives are precious, and no cry will be left unheard. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Miriam Negaran.
Good evening, Mayor Taylor and City Council members. My name is Miriam, and I'm a taxpaying constituent of Ann Arbor. Over 15 years ago, I moved to Ann Arbor because it's an educated, diverse, liberal town, with the hopes that my daughter, Zainab El-Khalali, whom I believe you know personally, Mayor Taylor, would eventually go to U of M. Zainab is now a student at U of M who has been moved to speak truth to power, who's been rewarded by having her hijab yanked and being slammed to the ground and cuffed by campus police because she was protesting for Palestine. Imagine the rage I felt as her mom. Now imagine all the Palestinian moms who have to watch as their children are imprisoned by the IDF. But I'm not here on my behalf. I'm here on behalf of the thousands of men, women, elderly, children, all Palestinian civilians murdered by the genocidal Zionist Israeli regime. I'm here on behalf of 3-year-old Palestinian Reem, the apple of her grandfather's eye, the soul of my soul, as he called her. The same grandfather who found his 2 dead grandchildren and his own child dead, buried in the rubble of their home for the mere crime of being Palestinian in Gaza. Do you have any idea how demoralizing it is to know that our hard-earned tax-paying dollars are going towards funding the genocidal Israeli regime? To go to sleep with the horrors of Palestinian deaths fresh in your mind, just to wake up to even more death and destruction in the morning? But we get to take a break. We get to turn off the news. We get to sleep in the comfort of our own homes. The people of Gaza don't get to do that. I read a post on Instagram today that really struck me, and I'm going to share it with you. My name is Ahmed. I'm a Canadian citizen. I came to Gaza to visit and defend my thesis. My family was forced to the south while I was volunteering at the hospital. I couldn't leave people in the north and head south. My heart never let me. Today, we can't help. It's do or die. We are running for our lives, just trying to stay alive. I even registered to leave back to Canada, but my name won't come up. I can't even make it to the south. I cannot make it anywhere safe. I have lost hope to reunite with my family and see anyone. We're here on behalf of all the Reems, the Ahmeds, the thousands of unnamed victims of this genocide, to ask you to call for a ceasefire now. How many more people need to die before we say enough is enough? Ann Arbor needs to do better, to be better. We need to lead by example as the liberal beacon of democracy in Michigan, to follow in the steps of the UAW, of other cities like Detroit and Dearborn, and pass a ceasefire resolution. Thank you.
Thank you. We have now reached the end of the public comment period. Public comment will resume at the towards the tail end of our meeting with number 18. Are there communications today from council? Councilmember Briggs.
So I'd like to thank everybody for being here tonight. I know this is very difficult to come and speak to council, and so many of you have shared personal stories of your own and personal stories of others that you care about and love. I do want to acknowledge how many people in our community are being impacted by this on a daily basis. We have been hearing this from our constituents, from residents, from community members. We know, I have heard of the pain that community members are feeling after Hamas murdered and tortured and raped and took hostage innocent Israelis and promised.
Please. Please. Please.
The journalist Max Blumenthal refused.
Excuse me, please.
It's complete nonsense.
Please. I'm requesting that people be in order.
Speak, please. Thank you.
Thank you. We've heard from constituents with loved ones. I've heard from constituents with loved ones who are held hostage and fearing for their safety.
Please.
And so many of you have spoken tonight of the tens of thousands of innocent civilians that have been injured, killed, and more than 1 million that have had to flee their homes in Gaza. Vice President Harris said over the weekend that the scale of civilian suffering and the images of videos coming from Gaza are devastating. International humanitarian law must be respected. UNICEF reports that the Gaza Strip is once again the most dangerous place in the world to be a child. As folks have said tonight, over 6,000 children have been murdered in Gaza. I called Congresswoman Dingell this morning, and I communicated what I'm hearing from my Jewish and my Arab American constituents. I support her call for a bilateral ceasefire agreement to end the violence between Israel and Gaza. As a local elected official, I am committed to ensuring that our community is a place that is safe and where all of our community members can thrive. And since October 7th, I have heard from so many, from Jewish, from Palestinian American, from Arab American community members, that it does not feel like a safe community anymore. You have spoken to this evening. People are worried about gathering in schools and places of worship, visibly identifying their religion or nationality, or expressing their political views. We have heard the stories this evening. I have heard of children being called bombers at school. And we know that when people are expressing their political views in our community, that they are facing severe repercussions. I received a call this afternoon from a constituent who had been doxxed for expressing pro-Palestinian views. We can and we must be better. I am also hearing a deep desire for compassion and increased tolerance from views that are different from one's own. I don't have the answers for what we are facing, but
That's the resolution. That's the answer.
But there are actions that we as a local government can take to address the local issues that are happening in our community, and I think that that is what this body is committed to doing. I would like to end by saying that there are issues that people have brought up this evening. If you have faced discrimination or hate crime, if you know of somebody who has, please report it. Please file a complaint with our Human Rights Commission and make sure to report that with our police department as well. And continue to reach out to us as council members.
Moral bankruptcy. That's what you're exhibiting. Moral bankruptcy.
Ma'am? Further communication from Councilmember Gaziano.
I want to echo a lot of what Councilmember Briggs has said. Thank you all for coming tonight and for sharing your pain. I want to acknowledge the pain that's in this room, both from the Jewish American community and from the Muslim community. We have to acknowledge that there's pain on both sides here. We have to. I'm from a diverse family that has diverse religions. I have both Jewish and Muslim family members. We'll never know the pain of what's happening abroad, but I see it. I see the conflict that it's creating here. Over the last few weeks, I too have been meeting with both the Arab American, the Muslim American, the Jewish American community, just trying to focus on how we can help to make our community safe for everyone, how we can help people no longer fear infringements on free speech, discrimination. I grew up here after 9/11. My dad's name is Mohammed. I faced a lot of racial slurs. My mom was in an airplane on her way to a conference for child psychiatry. She's a child psychiatrist here at UMM. And the plane was grounded, and she was interrogated by the FBI and separated from my brother for a whole day. And I remember us fearing, we didn't know what was going to happen. Hate against, Muslim people, against Jewish people.
It's a genocide.
It's a plague in our community. I too support Congresswoman Debbie Dingell's call for a bilateral ceasefire. I also condemn Hamas and the attacks that happened in Israel. All hostages have to be released.
It's a genocide.
Ma'am.
It's a genocide.
And the prisoners.
It's a genocide.
Ma'am.
It's a genocide. It's a genocide, Ms. Gaziano.
Please be quiet. Please allow the council member to speak. It is not your time to speak.
And
Please do not be disruptive in this meeting.
Thank you. And I call, for the release of all prisoners. We are not going to be able to create peace in the Middle East. We have this small community here that we exist in.
Ma'am.
And I hope that we can come together. I think that's what makes Ann Arbor exceptional, is that if you've experienced discrimination, please contact the Ann Arbor Human Rights Commission. We're here for the community.
Ma'am, please do not be disruptive. You are disrupting the meeting. Please do not disrupt the meeting anymore.
It's not discrimination.
Further discussion. Further communication from council. I'd like to request confirmation of the following appointment that was presented to City Council for consideration at the November 20, 2023 regular session. Julie Grand to the Ann Arbor Transportation Commission. Moved by Councilmember Cornell, seconded by Councilmember Ackman. Discussion? All in favor? Opposed? It's approved. I'd like to present the following nomination for your consideration to the Leslie Science and Nature Center Board of Directors, Teresa Perlowski. For my part, I'd like to say very briefly that what we've seen here and abroad is, shows in so many respects the effect of dehumanization, targeting and dehumanizing of Jews and Muslims and Arabs, and it creates incredibly harmful divisions among members of our community who are hurting, and it pushes groups into their corners. And it creates a permission structure, an opportunity for those who have been among us for so long to advance pre-existing agendas of hate. And we cannot let this conflict build here at home. We cannot have a community split apart. We can't feed old hatreds, which are giving already vulnerable communities that were vulnerable before October 6th for months and years and decades and millennia, fuel to the ever-present fear of another Tree of Life or another Christchurch. We at the city are committed and will continue to work with all community, religious, and other groups as best we can to ensure their safety, both real and perceived, during these times and thereafter. And we will do anything that we can to bring about community understanding and healing. And to echo council member statements, if at any time you believe, you feel that you have been aggressed, that you have been doxxed, that your ability to protest has been infringed upon, please come forward and we will do everything we can to assist you.
It's about children. We cannot heal. It's about genocide.
It's during, if these events teach us anything, it's my belief that we must understand that the only path for our community with a promise of unity is for us to recognize and act upon our common humanity. And that is to share and validate and crucially speak the grief of the other, even as we grieve ourselves. We at the City of Ann Arbor, our task is to promote and improve basic services and quality of life, and we do this through our municipal services. We have a role to promote belonging in the community, and as best we can, as I've said, to ensure that constitutional rights are respected and that people, no matter their wealth, origin, status, identity, race, religion, that they know down deep to their bones that they have a place here at the City of Ann Arbor. It is our goal at the city to ensure, ma'am, it's our goal, I believe, our first goal, to do no harm. It's incredibly incumbent upon this issue, which is, as must be acknowledged, is a long-term issue of incredible meaning and emotion and complexity. And we are not equipped at the City of Ann Arbor to solve it, but what we are able to do is support our community members who are making every effort they can to advocate to those in government with the power to address their concerns. And that's what we're proposing to do. Ma'am. Ma'am, you are disrupting the meeting. You are disrupting the meeting, ma'am. Please cease disrupting the meeting. Thank you. Thank you. CA6, resolution to revive the early voting center availability for the 2024 election cycle to include citywide access at all locations. Moved by Councilmember Briggs, seconded by Councilmember Dish. Discussion. All in favor? Opposed? It's approved. We now come to a set of public hearings. Public hearings are an opportunity for members of the public to speak to council and the community about a specific subject matter of the public hearing. People need not have signed up in advance to speak at a public hearing, but your speech must relate to the subject matter of the public hearing. That is to say, the specific item on the agenda. Speakers in all cases will have 3 minutes in which to speak, so please pay close attention to the time. Our clerk, both here and online, will notify you when 30 seconds are remaining and when your time has expired. When your time has expired, please conclude your remarks and cede the floor. Public hearing number 1, an ordinance to amend Chapter 55, zoning, amendments to the approved PUD, Planned Unit Development District, Lockwood of Ann Arbor, PUD zoning and supplemental regulations, 2195 East Ellsworth. Is there anyone in-house who would like to speak to this agenda item at this public hearing? Please just come forward and do so.
Thank you, Mayor Taylor, King Arbor, Second Ward. The setback adjustments to the Lockwood project are very minor. But if you'll allow me some leeway, I'd like to talk about a much bigger problem related to this building, which is under construction.
The subject matter, we have to hew to the proposal at hand.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who'd like to speak at this public hearing? Thank you.
Yeah, I'll be brief. I spoke at the groundbreaking for this. I think it's a good project over there, and I was really disappointed to see that, they built it this way. And, you know, I had a lot of folks in the community come up to me when we go over the agenda, and they said, couldn't the city say to them, hey, tear that thing down, man. You build it 4 foot into the 68-foot, whatever it is, easement. Tear it down. And, of course, they're not going to tear it down. You say, okay, well, do something else for the community. Well, you can't do that. You can't do that. You can't go back and forth on that. But I don't think this should just go by with a nod. I think we should recognize that we expect certain things. I mean, it cost me $2,400 to prove to the city that my house was not 13 inches in front of the aggregated setback so that I could put a little bump up on the top of it. I wasn't even making my footprint bigger. But these guys just, okay, it's okay. Now we need that building, we really needed that building, and it's much better where it is now than where it was going to be on the west side, so I'm all for it, but I think it's unfortunate that something like this slips through the cracks and you don't try and get anything for it. And I'm also, no doubt, you are aware that I am very disappointed, and I think everybody here should know, that when you just approved former Councilwoman Julie Grant for the Transit Board, you approved somebody who one time at a meeting turned to my Palestinian American colleagues and said, if you don't agree with me, I'm going to turn into a heat-seeking missile. That's what Julie Grant said to Ali Ramwali at this table. And you all approve
Mr.
the appointment. You approve of that kind of speech.
Mr. Hayner, you're out of order. Thank you.
You too, Mr. Taylor.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hayner.
I don't call you mayor because I see you more as an empty suit.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else who would like to speak in-house who would like to speak at this public hearing? Is there anyone online who would like to speak at this public hearing?
Mayor, I do not see any callers with their hands up for this hearing.
Seeing no one, this public hearing is closed. Public hearing number 2, an ordinance to amend sections 5.17.4 and 5.18.6 of Chapter 55, the Unified Development Code of Title 5 of the Code of the City of Ann Arbor. Premiums, D1, D2, floor area ratio. Is there anyone who'd like to speak at this public hearing in-house?
Thank you, Mayor Taylor. Ken Garber, Second Ward again. I seem to have lost my notes on this one, so I'll ad-lib it. This ordinance would, as I remember, remove the floor area ratio element for D1 and D2. The height requirements would remain, I think, 600 feet for D2, 1,200 feet for D1, might be wrong. The idea here is to remove premiums as well for affordable housing and for sustainability because they haven't been effective, and just grant the extra height because that will improve affordability by adding supply to the city housing stock. Now, here's my view. This is a good idea. However, if you do this, you must, as soon as possible, change the definition of height exceptions in Chapter 55. Right now, the code specifies that you can go an extra 30% higher above the aforementioned limits if you meet certain standards for affordable housing and sustainability. Now, the way this is defined for sustainability is 60% of the roof area must be covered with solar panels, or the building must be built in such a way that it can be electrified in the future. This language is almost meaningless. What we need to do is change the definition so that it's in alignment with our 820 climate plan, and this additional 30% exception, height exception, should only be granted if the building is fully electrified and provides affordable housing both. This way there's no loophole for a developer to get around it. If we're going to build higher than D1 and D2 specify, then we should apply our current climate standards. Basically, you can build your way out of a housing crisis, and this ordinance that you have tonight may help do that. So you should vote for it. But as soon as possible, revisit Chapter 55 definitions for height exceptions and make them much stronger. That would be the only way to be consistent with our 820 plan. And in fact, this is a symptom of a larger problem. Our city code is completely misaligned with our climate action goals. And this is just one example. So I really think that this needs to be looked at closely. I support a yes vote tonight, but please consider what else you need to do on this. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who'd like to speak at this public hearing? Is there anyone online who'd like to speak at this public hearing?
Adam Juskevitz, do you have a comment?
Hi, this is Adam Juskevich in 4th Ward. I would just like to talk about the premiums real quick. The premiums were well-intentioned, but they didn't work. When something doesn't work, we need to be willing to adjust course. The unintended consequence of these premiums was simply that less housing got built, exacerbating our housing crisis. And as far as I can find, the premiums did not result in creating any new units of affordable housing. It's not working. It's time to change course and fix this. Please vote yes on B2. Thank you.
Thank you.
Adam Goodman, do you have a comment?
Hi, Adam Goodman, speaking to you from the 5th Ward. I also want to speak in favor of this change. The premiums haven't worked. And, I have seen some concern expressed that removing these premiums and uncapping floor area ratio would remove incentives for developers to do things that our community wants of developments. But this is a false choice because these premiums haven't worked. According to the agenda response for the November 6th meeting, if I understood it correctly, not a single project has been completed or even proposed downtown using the post-2019 affordable housing premium. And according to the agenda response memo for tonight, staff's conclusion is that, and I quote, "The premiums did not result in many affordable units or sustainable developments. And worse, they've largely halted progress on building any new housing downtown. And we absolutely do need more housing at all income levels." So the true choice is whether new housing for our workers, students, other community members will be built here or built in far-flung places like Livingston County. The true choice is whether folks will have an opportunity to live sustainable lives in the city, near where they work, study, etc., or whether they'll be pushed far out into the exurban, car-dependent fringe. And by the way, you can rest assured that the latter option will not meet any reasonable definition our community might set for sustainability. Now, this isn't to say that the idea of premiums or development incentives could never work. In fact, even if you make this change, we do still have what is essentially a height premium for affordable housing and sustainable buildings. Now, actually, I think this change will make it more likely that these incentives will actually get used, because the current system is a sort of Byzantine restrictions that regulate both floor area ratio and height. And these regulations actually end up conflicting with each other, such that it can be difficult for developers to make use of all of the floor area incentives if they hit the height limit, and difficult to use the height incentives if they hit the floor area limit. Simplifying our code to regulate and provide incentives around only one of these things, building height, would be a major improvement and simplification, make it much more likely that our city will be able to achieve the goals that we've set out. Mr. Garber may be correct, by the way, that these height incentives could use further refinement. But that's not what's at hand tonight, and so I really hope that you will approve this change tonight. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mayor, I don't see any other callers on the line with their hands up. Brandon Dimcheff, do you have a comment?
Hi, this is Brandon Dimcheff from West Larrytown in Ward 4. I will keep this quick. These premiums have produced 0 units of affordable housing since being passed in 2019. They're not working unless you consider success to be building less housing. I realize that blocking housing is the goal of some, but we are in a housing crisis, and we need to stop discouraging other housing construction to preserve a provably ineffective premium scheme. I appreciate that we tried, but it didn't work, and it's time to move on. The staff report recommends that we do this to simplify development expectations and better encourage downtown density. In other words, this change will allow us to build more predictably build housing that matches the character of the neighborhood, and it will have no negative effect on the number of affordable housing units built, since it has no effect on it so far. So please follow the staff recommendation. The height-based affordable housing and green construction bonuses have been proven more effective and are still available. Please approve B2 tonight. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mayor, I don't have any other callers on the line with their hands up.
Seeing no one, this public hearing is closed. Public hearing number 3, an ordinance to amend section 5.10.2 and 5.17 of Chapter 55, Unified Development Code of Title 5 of the Code of the City of Ann Arbor. Is there anyone in-house who would like to speak at this public hearing?
We're talking about the TC1 setback?
That's correct.
Okay. I want to start by providing a definition that I'm going to use for the term corruption, so we don't have any confusion like we did last time I used the term. And I'm looking at the Transportation International website. We define corruption as the abuse of entrusted power for private gain. It doesn't say personal gain, but private gain. Corruption erodes trust, weakens democracy, hampers economic development, and further exacerbates inequality, poverty, social division, and the environmental crisis. Corruption adapts to different contexts and changing circumstances. It can be evoked in response to changes to rules, legislation, and even technology. Today we have rules. And this is an amendment that's based on the curb. Now, a curb provides the opportunity to maximize the buildable area of a lot. I first heard of this idea of using the curb rather than the public right-of-way from a developer. And I thought, whoa, that's really strange. But stranger things have happened here at City Council. So what we're confusing is that sight distance is an engineering standard. It doesn't have to do with zoning. And the public right-of-way and lot lines are legally established points on a plat map. And a curb is a humanly constructed piece of concrete. And as we know, curbs can move. We saw that on Earhart. And in fact, curbs can just disappear like we saw on State. So how can we possibly use a curb for determining the buildable area of a lot, other than if we're doing a giveaway to developers? I mean, it is just a crazy idea. And I just want to say that this amendment has nothing to do with safety, and it's exploiting the term. And I really am troubled when we use the safety of our citizens for such a corrupt act as this. Again, corruption is the abuse of entrusted power for private gain. This is private as in developer. And I don't have much time left, but a community that actually refuses to revise Chapter 40 after significant work went into it, that's a site distance, because they were waiting for the comprehensive land use something or other, which was zoning that didn't have anything to do with site distance. A community that refuses to trim vegetation at intersections where there are site distance problems. So, anyway, I don't support this. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else in House who would like to speak at this public hearing? Is there anyone online who would like to speak at this public hearing?
Adam Goodman, do you have a comment?
Hi, Adam Goodman again. I wasn't going to speak about this, but I feel like someone should point out that on West Stadium, which was kind of the impetus for this change, this is going to reduce the buildable area for developers along the corridor. So I don't understand how this is corruption. I do have my own problem with this change, which is simply that it's a waste of time, and we should have been rezoning everything to TC1 much faster. But now that we're here, it's fine. I don't see the problem. That's all. Thanks.
Thank you.
Alex Lowe, do you have a comment? Go ahead. Alex Lowe, do you have a comment? We can't hear you. Here, the caller's phone is unmuted, but we can't hear him. Alex Lowe, do you have a comment?
We are regrettably unable to hear you, Mr. Lowe. Is there anyone else who would like to speak at this public hearing online?
Mary, don't have any other callers online for this call.
Hearing no one, this public hearing is closed. Public hearing number 4, an ordinance to amend the zoning map being part of Section 5.10.2 of Chapter 55 of Title 5 of the Code of the City of Ann Arbor. Rezoning 8.3 acres from P Parking District to C2B Business Service District, 900 Briarwood Circle. Is there anyone in-house who would like to speak at this public hearing?
Thanks, Mayor Taylor. Ken Garber, Second Ward again. I spoke on this at first reading. As you'll remember, this excellent Briarwood development was supposed to be all electric, except for backup gas generator. But the developer told Planning Commission in October that DTE could not guarantee enough capacity to serve a 100% electric building. So this project might use fossil gas for heating after all. DTE gas, of course. Maybe this is now resolved. Hopefully we'll hear about this tonight. But it's been an issue for other projects all over the city, and it's unacceptable. Monopoly electric utilities like DTE are legally obligated to provide service to all customers within their service territory, even if they must do this at a loss. They can't just say, sorry, not enough capacity. What most confuses me is that DTE's Briarwood substation is among its newest. In fact, it feeds the rest of the city. Here's what DTE engineer Mike Witkowski told Energy Commission in August, quote, "On the south side of town near Briarwood is actually one of our probably most state-of-the-art substations we have right now. It's a combined station where, again, ITC brings in a 120 kilovolt transmission. We step it down to 40 kV subtransmission. That 40 kV subtransmission then goes out and feeds a good majority of the substations in Ann Arbor, as well as several other stations around the city. But that substation near Briarwood also now has a 120 to 13.2 connection point where we serve the Briarwood area. The 13.2 refers to the modern 13.2 kilovolt distribution lines, so sadly lacking elsewhere in the city. Briarwood has them, so how can it be that DTE can't meet demand there? This begs an explanation. I also have to wonder if DTE is trying to charge this developer an arm and a leg for electricity upgrades under CIAC, which stands for Contribution in Aid of Construction. The MPSC authorized CIAC as a way to make sure ratepayers weren't subsidizing urban sprawl. It wasn't about infill projects because the assumption was that there would be enough capacity to serve those. No one took DTE neglect of its system into account. I sincerely hope this development is not forced to use gas against its will. And I ask you, Council, to please address this overall capacity issue now before we have more cases like this, where DTE forces developers to build with gas in direct violation of our city's 820 climate plan. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else in-house who'd like to speak at this public hearing? Is there anyone online who'd like to speak at this public hearing?
Mayor, I don't see any callers with their hands up for this hearing.
Seeing no one, this public hearing is closed. Public hearing number 5, a resolution to approve 900 Briarwood Circle site plan and development agreement, 900 Briarwood Circle. Is there anyone in-house who would like to speak at this public hearing?
Thanks, Mayor Taylor. Never miss an opportunity, do I? Ken Garber again. Yeah, just here to say that this is an excellent development. Their Simon Property Group is going to be demolishing the old Sears building and putting in a sporting goods store, a grocery, and I believe 350 units of apartment rental housing. And I think this is a great revisioning of Briarwood, partial, but it's a start. And this developer came in determined to build to our 820 specifications, all electric. And as I said in my last comments, I just really, really sincerely hope that this capacity issue down there has been resolved. And I really hope that if it's not, that you hold DTE's feet to the fire and get them to change their policies and provide the capacity that as a monopoly utility they're required to, I believe, under law. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else in-house who'd like to speak at this public hearing? Is there anyone online who'd like to speak at this public hearing?
Adam Goodman, do you have a comment?
Hi, Adam Goodman, one more time. Generally speaking, I think this is a great project. I have one small quibble with it, though, which is that if I understood the site plan and development agreement correctly, the developer is proposing to take a section of Briarwood Circle and make it 4 lanes. Why 4 lanes? The city recently passed a resolution stating a policy that we should not have multi-lane roads. We should not have roads with more than one lane of traffic in each direction. And this is a necessary step to achieve our Vision Zero goals, because multi-lane roads comprise a disproportionate fraction of the injuries and deaths that happen on the roads in Ann Arbor. So I don't understand why this is 4 lanes instead of 3. I don't have data to support this, but I almost feel like 4 lanes could be worse than 5 because you're getting rid of the dedicated center turn lane. I realize it's late in the project and the changes are probably not going to be made at this point, but I hope the city will look more carefully at this in any future development reviews that involve something like this. Thank you.
Mayor, I don't have any other callers on the line for this hearing.
Seeing no one further, this public hearing is closed. We have before us the regular session meeting minutes of November 20, 2023, moved by Councilmember Watson, seconded by Councilmember Dish. Discussion of the minutes. All in favor? Opposed? The minutes are approved. B1, an ordinance to amend Chapter 55 zoning, amendment to the approved PUD Planned Unit Development District, Lockwood of Ann Arbor, PUD zoning and supplemental regulations 2195 East Ellsworth, moved by Councilmember Medina, seconded by Councilmember Ghazi Edwin. Discussion, please, of B1. Councilmember Dish.
This is a very simple adjustment that we're asked to make. A survey conducted by the developer during construction revealed that the building foundation extended slightly over the east and south setbacks. Because the foundation is laid and the building is under construction, it makes more sense to make slight reductions to those setbacks than it does to re-pour the foundation. There is no new construction proposed. There are no other changes to the site plan or zoning regulations.
Further discussion of B1? All in favor? Opposed? It's approved. B2, an ordinance to amend Section 7, an ordinance to amend Section 5.17.4 and 5.18.6 of Chapter 55 Unified Development Code of Title 5 of the Code of the City of Ann Arbor. Moved by Councilmember Iyer, second by Councilmember Briggs. Discussion, please, of B2. Councilmember Dish.
As some of you heard, if you were listening to the public hearing, this is an exciting change. We are proposing to eliminate the floor area ratio premiums and floor area ratio restrictions that were enacted for downtown in 2019, so that development in the city's downtown zoning districts, that's D1 and D2, will be regulated solely by height. It was confusing to regulate them both by height and floor area ratio. So the height restrictions in D1 are 180 and in some places 120 feet. In D2, it's mostly 60 feet, or it is 60 feet. The proposed amendments will make the process for downtown development more predictable, efficient, and transparent, because regulating simultaneously by height and floor area ratio isn't done anywhere else for good reason. It is confusing. Premiums, as many callers stated correctly, did not result in stimulating any new units of affordable housing. This ordinance change represents a change of strategy to support affordable housing. Thanks to the voters of Ann Arbor, who approved an affordable housing millage in 2022, every new development in this city pays property tax, a portion of which goes into the Affordable Housing Fund. That amount can be significant for a multi-story building in downtown where land is quite valuable. Height exceptions will remain. I agree that the sustainability measures required to qualify for height exceptions need further refinement, as Mr. Garber pointed out. Planning staff has committed to make those refinements in the event that pre-site planning conversations with developers indicates a significant interest in using them. Otherwise, we'll put that on the back burner while we work on the comprehensive plan.
Further discussion? Councilmember Briggs.
I'll say that this is the item on the agenda that probably I struggled with the most. I spent a lot of time going through the reports and presentations, asking questions of staff, because in some ways it felt counterintuitive to me based on what our goals are. But despite that, it's pretty clear that over and over again, we're hearing from staff, from the consultants, from Planning Commission, this just wasn't working. We weren't achieving our goals of getting more affordable units, more sustainable developments. And so I do think it's important that we focus in on some of the elements that we do have, which is the height incentives that we have in place. I agree with Mr. Garber that we should revisit those definitions and tighten them up to make sure that they're actually aligned with what our goals are. And I also think that we're going to be getting a report soon on economic development activities and our kind of a full review of our development process. We have heard over and over again how challenging it is to develop in our community, and our green builders have been asking us to look at ways that we can really demonstrate to developers and make it easy for them to build green. And so I think there's hopefully going to be a lot of opportunities in that report that we get. And I know there's others in the community working on this. So looking forward to moving those forward. And
Further discussion? For my part, I'm excited about this moving forward, as I think the only person here who voted for the initial initial premiums that were put into place in 2019. They were indeed an effort to promote sustainability and promote affordable housing, but as our staff memos and members of the public who have spoken and folks here at the table have indicated, they were not successful. They weren't successful even in an environment of extremely low interest rates. We did not see building in the downtown that made use of these premiums, and so when things don't go well, we iterate, and that's exactly what we're doing here. We're looking to do what we can with the tools that we have, those being land use requirements to incentivize more affordable housing in the downtown and throughout our city, and also to promote more sustainable development in line with our 820 goals. I'm excited about this particular change, and also the prospect alluded to of more incentives and abilities for us to help developers who come to us with 820 consistent and promoting solutions to help them through our processes and get those structures off the metaphor and into real life. Further discussion? All in favor? Opposed? It is approved. B3, an ordinance to amend Section 5.10.2 and 5.17 of Chapter 55 Unified Development Code of Title 5 of the Code of the City of Ann Arbor, moved by Councilmember Briggs, second by Councilmember Cornell. Discussion, please, of B3. Councilmember Dish.
As I said the first time this came before us, this was a situation where the Planning Commission did not recommend the proposed amendments to setbacks, but their judgment was not unanimous, as 5 members, including me, supported the amendments and 3 opposed them. Now, there is broad agreement on the Planning Commission about the value of and need to provide capacious sidewalks and amenities like street trees, bus shelters, and bike racks on TC1 corridors. That's what this setback amendment is about. Providing for the future, for there to be space to do the kinds of things that make TC1 corridors walkable and bikeable communities. Now, planning commissioners disagreed regarding whether this space ought to be created by reconfiguring existing arterials, that is, by enacting road diets or moving curbs, changing the infrastructure, the hardware of our streets, or by requiring private property owners to set back permanent structures, which does indeed reduce the buildable area in some instances that they will enjoy. Streetscapes can slow traffic. Buildings set closer to the curb can slow traffic. Drive on South Main. Trees set between sidewalks and curbs can slow traffic. There is no clear-cut technical answer to which of these solutions is better. But what we do know is that if council chooses not to require setbacks for these important amenities, planning staff and planning commission can encourage developers to provide it, but there will be no certainty of our succeeding, nor will there be consistency along these corridors, which is very important. And moreover, I would say that measuring from the back of the curb is ingenious because it is a way to create amenity space without reintroducing the large distances between the street and developments. That is really a feature of suburban design, and it is precisely what we are trying to move beyond with TC1.
Further discussion? Councilmember Ackman.
Thanks. Sorry, my voice is a little scratchy. I just wanted to thank staff for their work on this. I think as Councilmember Dish said, I appreciate the innovative approach at looking at the distance from the curb line. I also wanted to point out, we're really trying to think about what these spaces should look like in the future as we build dense development along them. Right now, a lot of these corridors are fast-moving traffic, not a lot of amenities, sort of catered around the automobile, which we have said over and over again that we don't want to do with these. And so I think this goes very well with the resolution that we passed a couple of meetings ago with regard to road dieting. Again, just trying to think about how we use the space that we have in the right-of-way to meet all of these different needs of people driving, people walking, people being able to bike comfortably, people being able to wait for the bus without getting rained on or snowed on. So I look forward to approving this tonight. I think it's a good, wise way to look at the future of how we want this space to look.
Further discussion? All in favor? Opposed? It is approved. B4, an ordinance to amend the zoning map being a part of Section 5.10.2 of Chapter 55 of Title 5 of the Code of the City of Ann Arbor, rezoning of 8.3 acres from P Parking District to C2B Business Service District, 900 Briarwood Circle. Moved by Councilmember Iyer, seconded by Councilmember Ackman. Discussion, please, E4. Councilmember Dish.
This is one of my favorite items on the agenda because it is our reverse Joni Mitchell. Approval of this resolution will zone 2 areas totaling 8.3 acres to allow a parking lot to be dug up and residential housing units plus an open field, an athletic field, to replace it. We are not paving over Paradise to put up a parking lot, but removing a parking lot to put up housing. We are voting right now only on the rezoning, which, as I said, from parking to C2B. C2B aligns with the zoning of the remaining development and the mall's footprint. It is consistent with the comprehensive land use plan land use element. Consistent with the State Street area plan and compatible with zoning in the surrounding area. I am, although this is not relevant to the zoning, but I am happy to confirm that the multifamily residential units shall be constructed and operated as an all-electric building without any natural gas connections, except for what is needed for emergency backup power generation. That is in the development agreement, which is in the packet. It's not just my word against anyone else's. This is a legally enforceable agreement. So I'm very happy to support this rezoning, and I will be delighted to support the site plan when we come to that.
Further discussion? All in favor? Opposed? It is approved. DB1, resolution to approve 900 Briarwood Circle site plan and development agreement at 900 Briarwood Circle. Moved by Councilmember Iyer, seconded by Councilmember Ackman. Discussion, please, of DB1. Councilmember Dish.
The reason why I'm talking so much, you may all want to know, is because I am the liaison to the parking commission, to the planning commission. And so I like to explain these things so that we are all clear on what we're doing. So I said a lot already about the site plan, so I'm not going to repeat much, except to say that this will feature 354 units of multifamily residential housing. The project will also include a 2-level high-end grocery store, a 2-level sporting goods store, and, as I mentioned before, a fenced-in playing field. The project is all electric, and the housing, I want to emphasize this because it's important, will be of diverse sizes, which means that it will offer diverse price points. There will be 73 studios, 173 one-bedrooms, 96 two-bedrooms, and 12 three-bedrooms. There will be a 4-level parking garage with 301 spaces. This will be encircled by the residential units, so not visible from the street, and will include enclosed bicycle storage for 36 bikes on the parking garage's first level. As Adam Goodman mentioned, the transportation improvements will include a lane reduction from 5 lanes to 4 lanes for the frontage of the project, and the addition of a dedicated striped bike lane to the surface of Briarwood Circle. There's also going to be significant improvements of connectivity through this site. As for the question, why not 4, I don't know, and I will ask.
Further discussion? Councilor Ackman, sorry.
Again, this is Ward 4. All I have to say is please turn the old vacant Sears and big, vast parking lot into 354 residential units in our ward. This is just nothing but great, so thanks.
Further discussion? I, too, would like to echo my enthusiasm for this project. We all know that areas such as Briarwood are undergoing substantial changes, both here in Ann Arbor and throughout the land. Briarwood is, in many people's minds, a unitary whole, but it is, in fact, a number of different parcels owned by a number of different entities, each with their own view as to what's good for themselves. And so, as a consequence, is not capable of being addressed in great unity. And so we must approach it, or not, and so it will be approached by the various property owners in this block-by-block fashion. That is to say, this is the first instance of major change in the Briarwood area, and it is one that is, I think, incredibly positive. The transition from parking lot in the old Sears to grocery, residential, and further retail is a wholesale good, and I'm incredibly excited by it, and hopefully this is the first of many to come in the area. Further discussion? All in favor? Opposed? It is approved. C1, an ordinance to add Chapter 55, leaf blowers, to Title 6 of the Code of the City of Ann Arbor. Moved by Councilmember Cornell, second by Councilmember Iyer. Discussion, please, of C1. Councilmember Cornell.
Just as a reminder of what this ordinance change is, it is a ban in the over time of gas-powered leaf blowers. As it currently reads, off-season during the summer when people aren't moving their leaves, June 1st to September 30th. Electric leaf blowers can be used during that time. Gas-powered leaf blowers are permitted from October 1st to May 30th through the year of 2027. Beginning January 1st, 2028, the use of all gas-powered leaf blowers is prohibited at all times in the city. This ordinance is all-inclusive, including parks, golf courses, commercial properties, and apartments and condominiums. Enforcement will be complaint-based, and enforcement would be most straightforward during that time when gas leaf blowers are banned because they are easily observable. The phased-in approach of this ordinance, the immediate ban during off-season, allows a financial runway for residents and business owners to prepare. When a seasonal ban first goes into effect, companies will need to obtain electric equipment to continue working, but they would still be able to use their gas equipment in the busiest season, allowing them to amortize that equipment while integrating electric into their operations. I want to say that overwhelmingly the feedback for this has been positive, but I did want to address a few misconceptions that have been raised. I've heard feedback that electric blowers don't work as well, but a recent Consumer Report analysis showed that electric leaf blowers match or beat the best gas models in every single test conducted. And the analysis showed that the batteries for leaf blowers tested, the batteries that were tested for leaf blowers, electric ones, charged in approximately 5 to 48 minutes and worked for an average of 94 minutes. In contrast, no gas models were considered quiet during their decibel testing, and gas-powered leaf blowers generated 23 times the carbon dioxide of an F-150. Those gas-powered leaf blowers have been linked to cancer, asthma, heart disease, and hearing loss. Electric leaf blowers are better for the planet, better for people's health, better for the workers who operate that equipment. And over time, when you factor in the gas model's lifetime cost, less expensive. The results showed a positive return on investment in battery-powered leaf blowers in about 10 months. I'll be supporting this tonight. Thank you.
Further discussion of C1. Councilmember Ghazi Adwan.
I would like to thank the sponsors of this. I think it's needed, it's necessary. We know the public health impacts of gas and the environmental impacts. I have been working with the sponsors on 2 amendments that I'd like to make a motion to bring forth. 1 amendment that is attached to the agenda. I worked with the sponsors on these amendments, so I hope it will be friendly to the body.
So let's see. Oh, it's a substitute ordinance in whole. So it's an amendment for the substitute ordinance moved by Councilor Ghazi Edwin, seconded by Councilmember Redina. Is that friendly to the body? The proposed amendment is friendly to the body. Further discussion of the main motion as amended. Thank you. Councilmember Redina.
Thank you, Mayor Taylor. First and foremost, I do want to thank my colleagues, members of our staff, for their work on this proposed ordinance. I agree with and support the intent here and support the eventual outcome. Gas-powered leaf blowers are, in fact, bad for the environment, bad for your health. I purchased an electric leaf blower when I first moved into my home, and while it is certainly not perfect, and I wish I would have gotten a model with a better battery, it mostly meets my needs. I do encourage members of our community to educate themselves on this topic and begin to make this transition. That being said, I do still have a couple of concerns with the proposed ordinance and also have a couple of amendments. First, I'm relatively uncomfortable supporting an all-out summer ban immediately going into effect. I understand that this may simply be a point of disagreement for some of us, which is okay, but asking my constituents in some of Ann Arbor's lower-income neighborhoods to change out expensive lawn equipment in the next 6 months is something that I'm not comfortable supporting. While summer may be the off-season, a lot of my constituents, a lot of Ann Arbor residents use their leaf blowers to clear grass clippings from driveways, roadways, and public sidewalks after caring for their lawns, which helps to prevent the yard waste from making it into our storm drains or clogging or creating obstacles on our sidewalks. I also understand that there are health concerns here as well, and I don't take that lightly. It's why I'm grateful that my ward colleague is engaging with OSI about ways that we can help our neighbors who may not otherwise be able to afford it to start making this transition. But as I've also shared with a number of you, I have an older neighbor who used to work in landscaping, who is retired now, but uses much of his older equipment to help other elderly or disabled folks in our neighborhood to care for their lawns and to keep them in compliance with city ordinance. Similarly, there are many individuals, not just big commercial landscapers, who do yard work to earn money in the summer. An immediate summer ban is likely not going to incentivize my neighbor or these small-time entrepreneurs to spend money to replace working equipment with new electric equipment immediately, but it will likely mean that they are simply not able to they will have to cut back on the services that they're able to provide this summer. For that reason, I would be comfortable with a slightly longer ramp-up period, which grants us more time to educate the public about the health risks, the upcoming changes, and potentially to work with OSI to assist with lower-income residents and smaller businesses in making the transition, which would empower our residents to embrace these changes rather than penalizing them when they cannot do so immediately. So for that reason, Madam Clerk, if you could please distribute Amendment 1 that I shared earlier today. I would move that under 6702 of the proposed ordinance, regulation of gas-powered leaf blowers, we amend the language to read, summer ban and phase out, beginning on January 1st, 2025, the use of gas-powered leaf blowers is prohibited in the city from June 1 to September 30th. Electric leaf blowers may be used during this time.
Is there a second? Seconded by Councilmember Ghazi Edwin. Discussion of the amendment. Councilmember Cornell.
I'm unclear why people need to use gas leaf blowers in the summer when they're not moving leaves. And I do think that the ramp up between now and the summer is ample opportunity to come up with a different system if that won't work for you, many of which, such as a broom, is very cost effective. So I would not be supporting this amendment.
Councilmember Iyer.
Yeah, I also won't be supporting this. I don't think that we're doing either our constituents or the environment any favors by prolonging the transition that's really necessary here. These are incredibly dirty, polluting machines. They're terrible, not just for the environment, but for the very people who are using them, many of whom are low-income lawn care workers who have no choice but to use what their boss gives them. And I'm very mindful of that in wanting to do this as quickly as possible. I'm going to quote from an article online. A leaf blower blows much more than leaves. Gardeners wielding these machines also blast away topsoil, kick up pesticides, fungi, chemicals, fertilizers, spores, which are sometimes diseased, weed seeds, and street dirt that can contain oil and gasoline. All of this goes into your lungs when you're using one. All of these emissions can worsen asthma, allergies, and other chronic lung ailments. The American Lung Association is on record supporting bans of leaf blowers. And too often these devices just move leaves and grass clippings around. Maybe one is trying to send them back into their lawn, but they do often end back up in the street and clog our storm drains. To Councilmember Cornell's point, a broom works great. I've not used a leaf blower on grass clippings ever in my life. I don't even know how one would go about doing that. I'm sure people have figured it out, but it seems pretty tough to me. In any case, regardless of my personal preferences, studies have actually shown that in fact, in 1998, a Los Angeles City task force pitted a woman in her late 50s, I'm only almost 50, armed with rakes and brooms against burly gardeners with gas-powered and battery-powered leaf blowers. The rake and broom were faster than the leaf blowers and cleaned some areas better than both. So I will not be supporting this.
Further discussion? Councilor Ghazi Edwin.
I understand the environmental impact, and I know that we, it's not good for our health. At the same time, I think that when we implement some of these transitions, we have to think about who is able to participate and who is left behind by some of these choices. Part of the reason why I came forth with both the amendments as well as the resolution that will be discussed shortly, which details a educational plan and campaign that OSI will be launching, is I think it's really important that we give our residents adequate time, especially those most disenfranchised, to understand the changes in use by season and use by time. As well as, the city is planning to create a bulk buy program and potentially subsidize equipment. I also, want to mention a story. The reason why I also brought forth these amendments and why I will be supporting Councilmember Radina's proposed amendment is I was approached by a small minority-owned business that does lawn work, and they had just invested in a bunch of gas equipment. And they approached me and they said, "We don't know if we'll be able to afford a bunch of electric equipment. I know that electric leaf blowers are cheaper for residents, but at a commercial level, the technology doesn't exist yet, and they are more expensive."
Further discussion? Roll call vote, please, starting with Councilmember Dish on the amendment.
No on the amendment.
Councilmember Dish?
No on the amendment.
Councilmember Harrison?
Yes.
Councilmember Song, absent. Councilmember Watson?
No.
Councilmember Medina?
Yes.
Councilmember Ghazi Edwin?
Yes.
Mayor Taylor?
No.
Councilmember Iyer?
No.
Councilmember Ackman?
No.
Councilmember Briggs?
No.
Councilmember Cornell?
No.
Motion fails.
Further discussion on the main motion on the amendment. Councilmember Brito, you have the floor.
Thank you again, Mayor Taylor. Second, while the compromise language won by my ward colleague and the sponsors, or negotiated between my ward colleague and the sponsors earlier, was a slight improvement, I still do not support a new limitation on operational hours that are inconsistent with our existing noise ordinance. I think this creates unnecessary confusion for residents, and from my perspective, simply doesn't make a ton of sense. I can get more into that, but first I will move that under 6703 regulation of leaf blowers generally, I move to strike the entirety of the hours of operation section and to renumber it accordingly, and would ask that our clerk please distribute Amendment 2 that I provided earlier today.
Seconded by Councilmember Ghazi Edwin. Councilmember Medina.
Thank you, Mayor. Noise is a nuisance, but it's a temporary nuisance. You may remember some of my comments about this when we recently voted not to enforce against noise-based nuisances, for example, as the primary reason to stop vehicles passing through a neighborhood, and for good reason. Similarly, leaf blowers are often not used in a single space for hours and hours on end. And it strikes me as odd and inconsistent that if this passes as is, we would be creating a separate class for noise violation for which our residents could be ticketed up to $500 specifically and only for leaf blowers, including the use of quieter electric models. I think it creates a bit of a gotcha moment for our residents because for at least a 4-hour period each day, and I think about this specifically during longer summer months when folks are regularly outdoors doing yard work later, one could have a party in their backyard with music or TV amplified, could be doing noisy construction project with chainsaws and power tools, could mow their lawn, plow snow, weed whip their fence lines, all of which would be perfectly legal, but could actually be ticketed for using even an electric leaf blower to blow leaves or clear grass clippings from their sidewalks during that same time. It strikes me as unnecessarily confusing and complicated to create a separate classification for a single piece of equipment when our existing noise ordinance already exists to manage this problem for all similar pieces of equipment. That's all I'll say on that, but I encourage support. Thank you.
Further discussion? Councilmember Cornell.
I want to call out a couple of inconsistencies. There is already amended hours for when you can use equipment on house repair and house construction. So we do have precedent for setting different hours for different things. And I do want to take issue with the idea that a snow blower or a gas lawnmower is the same decibel output as a gas leaf blower, because those two things are not equal. So I kind of feel like we're comparing apples to Volkswagens and trying to make some sort of equitable decision based on those things when they just aren't the same. Thank you.
Further discussion? Councilmember Medina.
I just want to point out that the way the ordinance is currently written, it is not a time limit only on gas-powered leaf blowers. There's also a time limit on quieter electric leaf blowers, and it is only for leaf blowers. So it is not consistent with any other piece of lawn equipment that you might use. It would be a separate classification solely for that. And our residents are expected to just know that you can't use that one while you can use all of the others. It just seems inconsistent and unnecessary to me.
Further discussion? Councilmember Iyer.
Yeah, I would just point out that while electric leaf blowers are quieter, they still emit, around anywhere from 60 to 70 decibels. So it's not like these things are whisper quiet. They're still creating noise that at least I hear from my constituents about a lot, and folks are pretty happy that with the curb on the hours so that folks can be outside in the evening, enjoy their dinner outside, and not be disturbed by the sound of these things.
Further discussion? Roll call vote, please, on amendment number 2, starting with Councilmember Dish.
Councilmember Dish?
Yes.
Councilmember Harrison?
Yes.
Councilmember Song, absent. Councilmember Watson?
Yes.
Councilmember Medina?
Yes.
Councilmember Ghazi Edwin?
Yes.
Mayor Taylor?
Yes.
Councilmember Iyer?
No.
Councilmember Ackman?
No.
Councilmember Briggs?
No.
Councilmember Cornell?
No.
Motion carries.
Further discussion of the main motion is amended. Councilmember Dish.
I think this is a great ordinance. Once the snow stops falling and people stop writing about clearing sidewalks, they start writing about leaf blowers, and I'm really, really happy to be able to extend the same care and concern for outdoor, immediate area outdoor air quality as we are working on indoor air quality. So, but my question is, 2028 seems like a long ways away. And I know that there are reasons for the lead time, but I'm wondering if you considered 2026 or 2027, and why 2028? If this feels urgent, if it is horrible for people's health, if people don't have a whole lot of control over the equipment they have to use, couldn't we intervene sooner?
Further discussion? Councilmember Cornell?
I appreciate Councilmember Dish's comments. There was a lot of thought and care put into equity issues around this, especially for small business owners and for folks who might be mobility challenged on fixed incomes. And the idea was that the seasonal ban coupled with a longer runway was the absolute most inclusive way to make this something that people could be excited about, because I do think it is exciting, without feeling pressure financially or physically to adapt to the change quickly.
Further discussion? All in favor? Opposed? It is approved. DC1, resolution to approve 2024 council committee appointments, moved by Councilmember Medina, seconded by Councilmember Dish. Discussion, please, of DC1. Councilmember Medina.
Thank you, Mayor. Colleagues, very briefly, this resolution simply reaffirms council member committee, board, and commission assignments for the upcoming year. The only changes of note are that council members Ackman and Briggs have requested to swap in assignments, which was honored. If these are approved tonight, beginning in 2024, Councilmember Ackman will begin serving on the Housing Commission. Councilmember Briggs will begin serving on the Transportation Commission once again, and they will be replacing one another on those bodies. Thank you.
Further discussion? For my part, I'm excited about this moving forward. And again, I'd like to thank Mayor Pro Tem Medina for work done. Well, I don't want to say shepherding cats, because I don't want to mischaracterize the cooperation of our various colleagues. But in any event, there are a lot of moving parts, and it's not easy. And so, Councilmember Medina, thank you. Further discussion? All in favor? Opposed? It is approved. DC2, resolution to launch education and engagement initiatives in support of transition to all-electric leaf maintenance, moved by Councilmember Ghazi Edwin, seconded by Councilmember Cornell. Discussion, please, at DC2. Councilmember Ghazi Edwin.
So, thank you. I am really excited to bring this forward, and I want to thank OSI staff for working with me on this. Essentially, it's a resolution that will help the implementation of the leaf blower ordinance, and it really focuses on equity. So one of the things that the amendment that I previously proposed put into place was, originally the leaf blower ordinance said that if you violated the hours or the seasons, there would be a $500 fine. Now the fines will be $100 to $250. It's a progressive fine scale in accordance with Chapter 73, two-cycle power equipment. In this resolution, it details how the fines from those penalties will go into a fund to help low-income and fixed-income residents to buy electric leaf blowers. In addition, it talks about an educational campaign that will be launched next year, both for businesses and for residents on transitioning to electric leaf blowers, and in the future, electric lawn equipment. And then also it details OSI establishing a bulk buy program for electric leaf blowers, both for residents and commercial businesses of any size. What's really exciting about this is OSI has talked about how this can be a framework for future transitions to other electric lawn equipment that we pursue.
Further discussion? Councilmember Ackman.
I think this is great, and I want to thank Councilmember Ghazi Edwin for her work on this. You know, as many residents are familiar with, we have precedent for doing something like this. We do group buy for solar program. It's been very successful at getting residents able to get solar panels on their houses at deep discount. So I'm really excited about applying this to something else. Not to take anything away from what we're doing here, but I did feel like we should point out that our practice with these kinds of citations is to issue a warning first, so people generally don't get slapped with the ticket right away. They get a warning so that they have some time to change. So I still think that this is great. I look forward to putting money that we collect in fines towards this program, but I felt like that was worth mentioning.
Further discussion? Councilmember Adina.
Thanks. I also just want to thank my ward colleague for her work on this. I know we've had a number of conversations, and I failed to reach out and ask to be added as a co-sponsor. And so if I could please be added as a co-sponsor, I would appreciate that. Thank you.
Further discussion? All in favor? Opposed? It is approved. DS1, resolution authorizing summary publication of Ordinance 2332 and ordinance to amend Section 5.17.4 and 5.18.6 of Chapter 55 Unified Development Code of Title 5 of the Code of the City of Ann Arbor. Moved by Councilmember Dish, seconded by Councilmember Adina. Discussion, please, of DS1. All in favor? Opposed? It's approved. DS2, resolution authorizing summary publication of Ordinance 2333 and ordinance to amend Sections 5.10.2 and 5.17.4 of Chapter 55 Unified Development Code of Title 5 of the Code of the City of Ann Arbor. Moved by Councilmember Cornell, second by Councilmember Briggs. Discussion? All in favor? Opposed? DS2 is approved. Do we have a closed session today?
No, thank you, Mayor.
All right, then. We have before us the clerk's report of communications, petitions, and referrals. May I have a motion, please, to approve the clerk's report? Moved by Councilmember Adina, seconded by Councilmember Watson. Discussion? All in favor? Opposed? It is approved. Are there communications today from our city attorney? No, thank you. We now return to public comment, public overflow time. To refresh your recollection, public comment is an opportunity for members of the public to speak to council and the community about matters of municipal interest. To speak at public comment, one need to have signed up in advance by contacting our city clerk. Speakers in all instances will have 3 minutes in which to speak, so please pay close attention to time. Speakers will be called in the order that they have been designated by the city clerk in accordance with the pre-established methodology. Spots are available when called, so if you're present, you are welcome and invited to speak. If the person is not present, then their space is moved on to the next, and we move forward. In all instances, speakers are not authorized to designate their time to others. Our next speaker at public comment is Raina Masri.
Caller with the phone number 564, press star 9 to star 6 to unmute your phone. Go ahead. Rania Masri is on the line. Please raise your hand by pressing star 9. Mayor, I don't believe this caller is on the line.
Our next speaker is Fayez Sayed.
My name is Faiz from Ann Arbor. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Wassalatu wassalamu ala Rasulihil Kareem. In the name of Allah, the most beneficent, the most merciful. Salutations and blessings be upon his noble prophet and messenger. He mentions in his glorious book, the Quran, he who kills a soul, unless it be in punishment for murder or for spreading mischief on earth, shall be as if he had killed all mankind. And he who saves a life shall be as if he had given life to all mankind. The preamble to the Declaration of Independence states, we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. I am here to call for freedom. I am here to call for freedom for a population under siege in Palestine. I am here to call for an end to the genocidal, barbaric bombing of children and civilians funded by our tax dollars. I'm here to call for protecting freedom of speech and freedom of religion right here in our city, free from doxing, hate, and harassment. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Greg McClure.
Good evening, council members. Good evening, Mayor Taylor. My name is Greg McClure, 3rd Ward, and I am here calling on you to support a resolution for the ceasefire in Gaza, though I know, Mayor Taylor, you have said that it is not in your interest or in our board's potential future to do such a thing. I believe that it is not only within our jurisdiction, as our tax dollars go directly toward funding this genocide. I believe that it is within Ann Arbor's mission of being an environmentally friendly leader, of being a leader in justice, diversity, equity, inclusion. For without these resolutions, the words that we say ring hollow. Every day that we stand without supporting a resolution is a day that we will regret. It's a day that we will not get back. And it's a day that thousands of Palestinians will lose their lives on. I believe that it is a moral imperative for us to call for a ceasefire. Our representative from the city of Ann Arbor, Debbie Dingell, is in support of a ceasefire. I think it is only natural to show her that the people and the city council of Ann Arbor support her in that call. I think it is well within our rights and well within the jurisdiction to say Representative Dingell, we support you. The city of Ann Arbor is behind you in this call for a bilateral ceasefire and this call to release hostages and prisoners, in this call to respect the humanity that we claim to stand for. I'm going to go now. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Baisit Safar. Baisit Safar.
Caller with the phone number ending in 564. Press star 6 to unmute your phone.
Hi, can anyone hear me?
Yes, we can.
Hi, this is Bapu Zafar. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak. I'm here to ask the council to please pass a resolution, please at least table a resolution asking for an immediate ceasefire in Gaza. And I also want to ask the council to pass a resolution to prevent the city funds from being used for businesses that are aligned with any country that is involved in human rights violations or genocide. So now let me jump in. I know sort of what the council said last week, at the last meeting, I mean. The two reasons that the council said that they didn't want to move forward were that this is not within their jurisdiction, and that and I've spoken with one council member who said that the council does not have a direct impact on foreign policy. I think all of us understand that. The point of these resolutions is to have indirect impact on our elected politicians. So it's very much within our jurisdiction. And with regards to the spending of city funds, there is a precedent where in the past, Ann Arbor has in fact passed resolutions forbidding the spending of funds for firms that were affiliated with South Africa or Burma. So I just don't understand why the council is resistant to bringing this resolution on board. I was told earlier today that the council said that they don't want to split the community. I just want to be very clear. Given the genocide that is happening in Gaza, just to give you a sense for those who probably are not aware of what's happening in the world, 1 out of 200 children have died. Just think about that for a moment. The mortality rate that I'm talking about is higher than the mortality rate that came through COVID. If you were to scale up these numbers, that would be equivalent to 3 million kids having died in the U.S. Given all that, I just don't understand why the council is resistant to bringing this resolution for motion. If some members don't agree, they can vote no. But I just want the council to bring this for motion, and then they can decide whether to vote yes or no. But I think I deserve to see how my city council members are going to vote on this. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Salama Nawa.
Caller with the phone number ending in 185. Go ahead.
Hi, yes, I'm here. Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. My name is Salima Nawab, and I want to thank everybody that showed up today and stayed these long hours to voice their opinion. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. We know that a ceasefire resolution that is passed by any city, whether it's Detroit or Ann Arbor or Seattle or all of the cities of America, we know that our passing of a ceasefire resolution is not going to cause the fighting to stop. This is not something that any of our jurisdictions or our councils can do. It is a symbolic measure to say that the council hears the voice of their constituents, and their constituents are calling for a ceasefire. You can see by the number of people that are here today, you can see by the number of people that are calling on through Zoom, that this is what your constituents want. It is what your representative has also asked for. It is for what the UAW workers are calling for. The people of Detroit, the people of Michigan are calling for this. And when in Ann Arbor, you are finding resistance to even put it on the table, because there's probably some underlying reason, but they're coming up with some excuse that we don't deal with this. We do deal with this. When our tax dollars support the funding of the genocide, we do deal with this. This is our issue. When our students are at risk of being doxxed and their hijabs being pulled off and people don't feel safe and your constituents are coming and complaining, this is our issue. This is something you do have to bring to the table. And when you're paid, your job is paid for by your taxpayers, us. When we are paying for your electricity bills to be on and you're refusing to listen to us when we ask you to put a resolution on the table, you are not doing your job. I want to ask you if you are true to your claims of progressiveness, of inclusivity, liberalism, equality, your constituents, not just Muslims, not just Arabs, not just Palestinians, not just the Jews, all of your constituents here that are present are telling you this is important to them. Are you going to be true to your claim that you are inclusive and that you're progressive? Or are you going to be shutting your ears and closing your eyes? I want to ask you, when the Black Lives Movement situation was trendy, when the LGBTQ situation was trendy, and all of council members, or many of the council members, including the mayor, including Travis Radina, including Chris Watson, Jen Iyer, when we see your social media is showing signs of Black
30
Lives
seconds.
Matter and Pride Club, that you show your support. So how many kids does it take for this situation to become trendy, for you to now stand up for the children that are dying in Palestine, the children that are crying and saying, why is the world not doing enough? We know a ceasefire resolution in Ann Arbor will not do anything, but it shows our support for humanity. It shows that we are people that care about humans, that we are not going to come up with changes in language to quiet our constituents. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Kalam Thum. Kimlam Thum.
Good evening. My name is Kimlan Pham. I'm from Ward 4. So I want to speak about Palestine. While the dire situation in the Middle East may seem distant, it's Sorry. Okay.
It's on.
Okay, good evening, members of the council, fellow residents and friends. My name is Kimlan Pham. I'm from Ward 4. So I want to speak about Palestine. While it may seem distant, its repercussions are still felt in our community. Supporting a ceasefire is the only way to stand true to our community's values of compassion and empathy. We have to stand for peace. A ceasefire would not only be essential for saving lives, but also be a crucial step towards diplomatic negotiations. It provides the opportunity for dialogue and paves the way for finding lasting solutions to the deep-rooted issues that fuel the conflict. I ask the City Council to consider the gravity of the situation and to take a principled stand for peace, for supporting the resolution affirming the City of Ann Arbor's commitment and support for the congressional and worldwide calls for an immediate ceasefire in Gaza. Our community, like many others around the world, watches and waits for the signal that humanity values life over conflict. Please understand that being complacent during this kind of situation, a genocide, is never humane. Blood will be on your hands if you don't take a stand against oppression. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Donald Levitt. Thank you. Our next speaker is Bryn Curtis. Bryn Curtis. Our next speaker is Justin Wan. Thank you. Our next speaker is Lori Chung. I'm sorry, which one? Thank you very much. What is the phone number, last digits of his phone number?
6807.
Thank you.
Mayor Justin Wan, is that your, yes, he's online. Caller with the phone number ending in 807. Go ahead.
Hello?
Hi, we can hear you. Thank you.
Hello. All right, my name is Justin Nguyen. I'm a member of the Huron Valley Democratic Socialists of America, a union member and an Ann Arbor tenant until I was priced out of my apartment 3 years ago. I live 100 feet outside city limits now. As a socialist, a tenant, and a union organizer, I know that the struggle for peace and justice in Palestine is a struggle for peace and justice everywhere. It is the struggle of workers on the shop floor. It is the struggle of tenants against slumlords, and it is the struggle of the colonized against the grinding brutality of settler colonialism. The city of Ann Arbor must pass a resolution that calls for a permanent, lasting ceasefire, for Michigan's congressional representatives and senators to pledge their support for a ceasefire, and to affirm our city's commitment to fight Islamophobia, anti-Semitism, and anti-Palestinian, anti-Arab bigotry. Ann Arbor must join cities across the country and right here in Michigan, like Detroit, Hamtramck, and Dearborn, that have called for a permanent ceasefire. Ann Arbor must join the United Auto Workers, the United Electrical Workers, the American Postal Workers Union, and countless other unions that have called for a ceasefire. We must demand that all Michigan congressional members join Rashida Tlaib, Cori Bush, and others in voting for permanent ceasefire and against further aid to the Israeli war machine. As elected local representatives of the Ann Arbor community, your voices do matter to those you represent, as well as to your fellow office holders at the state and congressional level, however much or however little. Communities like Dearborn, Hamtramck, Detroit, and Ann Arbor can exert pressure on international injustice and must do so, especially when that injustice manifests so strongly and so closely as bigotry, doxing, and police violence right here in Ann Arbor. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Lori Chung. Our next speaker is Nadav Kane.
Hi, members of City Council. My name is Nadav Kane. I'm the Rabbi, Beth Israel Congregation, Washington Avenue in Ann Arbor. On Friday afternoon, I sat with one of our families whose 8-year-old son is the target of statements by his classmates at Ann Arbor, one of the Ann Arbor public elementary schools, that Israel is evil and they like to kill people. I told them, don't fear. We're going to call up the teacher, we'll call up the principal. I've had good luck before. We all care about our children. We want them protected. And they begged me not to do so. They said, actually, I feel like the mood at this point in Ann Arbor Public School District and coming over Ann Arbor is that people like those statements, support those statements, and administrators will just pretend not to agree with them, but will secretly want to condone them and will not be supportive of our child, and they will face retribution later, which does happen, unfortunately, in cases of bullying that is called out. I was hoping when I came here tonight that I would hear from others a deep sense of compassion for both sides, as I recently expressed in a Thanksgiving interfaith service here in Ann Arbor, and deep compassion. What I've heard is something of a party atmosphere of high fives and glee that seem to be celebrating only one side and seem to be wanting to blame Israel and by implication Jews in Ann Arbor. And I do not consider that a moral side. I remember that after 9/11, when so many editorials in the papers were about being brave to condemn Islamism and not being shy about doing so, I followed the rabbi of my congregation in California every day after worship to eat and patronize Palestinian and Muslim businesses, to show that we're one community and that what happens in the geopolitical stage should not be around scapegoating the residents of our local town because we stand with each other. I was hoping to hear something about a ceasefire that recognized we call for a ceasefire and the return of the hostages and a condemnation. In fact, we call on Hamas to turn over all Hamas operatives involved in the planning and execution of one of the most disgusting and brutal and inhumane conflicts and actions and massacres of our time. But I did not hear that, except I did hear that from members of the City Council. I'm in favor of all resolutions that call for true humanity and seeing Ann Arbor neighbors as our neighbors, and avoiding the scapegoating that leads to children in schools being blamed for international conflicts. I thank the Ann Arbor City Council for the fact that I heard that moral voice in you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Kristen Hayden. Kristen Hayden. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Kristen. I'm a Ward 2 resident. I'm speaking tonight in support of bringing forth and voting yes on a ceasefire. First, whether your constituents are contacting you asking to vote yes or asking you for a resolution, I would ask you to understand what they're asking for, maybe not how they're asking for it, because you as a council person know the next step that needs to be taken. And I want to bring up the point again about why Ann Arbor doesn't want to pass a resolution. And you've heard many personal stories, and so I know you already know that information. But it is particularly relevant to talk about this global topic because we do fund the violence inflicted on Palestinians personally. And if our money is going to be used like that at federal levels, we have to speak straight to our elected officials at that level. And the best way that we can do that is with you guys speaking with our voice in concert with Dearborn and Detroit and our friends in the UIW. The ceasefire would also aid in protecting our community members who are experiencing direct harm due to racism, anti-Islamophobia, anti-Semitism, and repression of free speech by saying Ann Arbor stands with them and Palestinians in our communities. You say you want to protect constituents, and that's the way to do it. I ask you to recognize the urgency of this moment and bring forth and vote for a ceasefire as soon as possible. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Nada Shoutari. Nada Shoutari.
Mayor, she was supposed to be
thank you.
online. Caller, if you're on the phone with phone number ending in 898, press star 9 to raise your hand. I don't think she's on the call anymore.
Our next speaker is Lissa Spitz. Lissa Spitz.
Caller with the phone number ending in 108, press star 9 if you're on the line. Mayor, I don't think she's on the call either.
Our next speaker is Larry Yunk.
Larry Yunk, phone number ending in 945, go ahead. Press star 9 or star 6 to unmute your phone. Go ahead, caller.
Thank you. I am Dr. Larry Junk, a semi-retired physician and professor from University of Michigan Medical School, here to ask City Council to do everything in your power to promote use of electricity, not fossil fuels, in new construction in Ann Arbor. The main fossil fuel in use is methane, formerly known as natural gas. The reason to phase out fossil fuels, of course, is because of our climate crisis. One of my motives for favoring actions to minimize climate change is the health consequences. Health threats include not only the obvious ones, such as heat emergencies, extreme weather events, and wildfire smoke, but some that may be less well known to you. Malaria and dengue fever, mosquito-borne diseases that kill large numbers of people in third world countries, have recently made inroads in the United States because of ongoing changes in the U.S. favorable for mosquitoes. Agriculture in Michigan and elsewhere will be increasingly threatened by the changing climate, threatening our economy and potentially the nutrition of our people. The rationale for moving toward building electrification is simple. When energy such as that used for heating, cooking, and water heating in our homes and businesses is generated by burning coal or methane, the resulting CO2 contributes to worsening climate change. But when our homes and businesses are fully electrified, no CO2 is generated if the electricity comes from sustainable sources such as wind and solar. The measures passed by our Michigan legislature last month should help to ensure that our electricity will come from sustainable sources. Our utilities will be required to use sustainable sources for 50% of their power by 2030, 65% by 2035, well within the lifetime of any newly installed furnaces, boilers, and water heaters. Such appliances will be obsolete earlier in their lifetime, highlighting the absurdity of installing them. The city faces limitations in its ability to require electrification, but there is much you can do. You can inform developers that Ann Arbor's A20 plan is strongly supported by our citizens, including 71% of voters supporting the 2022 millage. Our citizens want clean energy, not fossil fuels. You can emphasize this loud and clear, but also respectfully in negotiations with developers, also in deliberations in council.
30
any
seconds.
Increase in installation, any installation costs or short-term increase in monthly bills will be counteracted by several years of savings from electrification. Where zoning changes are possible, that can be used for leverage. The city could initiate a publicity campaign for our citizens about the benefits for electrification. We could work with our Michigan legislature for measures to allow our cities to require electrification. We could consider a small financial incentive, perhaps from the Climate Knowledge Fund. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Mohammed Alashovich. Mohammed Haliaovich. Our next speaker is Deki Alexander.
I was asked, as an A2 resident, occasional raconteur, local political, and the current board president of the Jewish Federation of Greater A2, where we were during last City Council's public comments. Comments that were to some a cacophony of white noise, demanding that you, this council, weigh in on the Israel-Hamas war and craft a resolution like the city of Ypsilanti's one-sided, spitting in sound bites full of words which divide rather than bridge resolution. A resolution that was intended to harm rather than heal, and actually hinder any type of cross-cultural relations between Jews, Muslims, and Arabs. While we were busy working to have that resolution rescinded, sidebar it was, not just because it was plagiarized from a resolution in Richmond, California, or its plagiarizers deleted any mention of empathy for the Jewish experience and our own generational trauma, but mostly because IPSI's resolution did what Hamas wants to do to Jews every place. It erased us. But today, we are still here. Understandably, many citizens view its city council as their only voice in the political arena, and thus requesting a resolution on a geopolitical conflict to some seems obvious. You are here. But you're here are parks and recs, cracks in sidewalks, chemicals in the water, fixed roads, and broad bike lanes. Ann Arbor, this is your landscape. This isn't to say you cannot care nor empathize, but a resolution on a war that is incredibly divisive will only foster more divisiveness. Our Ann Arbor is too diverse in beliefs and backgrounds for a resolution to speak the right words and hit the right tone. Today, many have asked that you create a resolution requesting a ceasefire without Hamas laying down its arms. Remember, as Ghazi Hamad of Hamas said on Lebanese TV, we will repeat the October 7th attack time and time again until the Israel and Jews are annihilated. I would encourage you, as people pontificate and plead for you to put forth a resolution, one that would only serve to divide and take this council down a path of no return, to look at your own A20 initiative. In it, you lay out a vision for what and how Ann Arbor should strive to be equitable, ensuring everyone gets what they need to succeed based on where they are and where they need to go, sustainable, meeting the needs of the present without jeopardizing the ability of the future, and lastly, transformational, doing something for someone that makes it or them better. At this time, any resolution on the Israel-Hamas war would not make me, you, us, or this city better. it might quite honestly make us worse. So let's direct our energy into what we can make better and change here. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Gazelle Barian.
Hello, it's Gisela Arriaga Barrios.
Thank you.
As you've been corrected before. So I hope that you guys don't come again with blank stares. You guys looked at one person, and that was the person prior to me this entire time. All of you only looked at her. I want you to look at me and listen to what I am saying. I understand that you guys don't want to propose this resolution. I completely understand that it's not about my life. It's about your life. It's all lives matter until it's Black Lives Matter. It's all lives matter until brown lives matter. It's all lives matter until Palestinian lives matter. It's embarrassing for you to consider yourself a diverse city and not consider our voices. We have a majority here who want to propose a resolution for a ceasefire that would end senseless violence, a genocide that Palestinians did not ask for. They don't deserve it, and to call it an open-air prison, why is it a prison if they are not criminals? To use rhetoric that is dangerous and harmful, to say that when you guys are proposing something, you put Israel before Palestine, is there a reason for that? I am a daughter of a survivor of the Salvadorian War. The Salvadorian War was funded by the US government, and it was aided by the military of the Israeli government. My mother had to flee her home in order to find any kind of sanctuary, to find any type of peace, and still to this day, there are still remnants of that. She cannot go back home. Her home is not there. The people that she once ran around the streets with are no longer there. The memories that she could ever scarcely remember are not there anymore. I mourn with the Palestinians. Their home is no longer their home. Their home is no longer their home, Jen. I hope that when you guys are listening to us, you are listening to our pleas. It's not a two-sided thing. Human rights is not two-sided. Yes. We want to save lives. We want you to be on the side of the people. If you want something that is a resolution that combines the community, well, we're here. Listen to us. You want to know more about what the community and their concerns are? Ask us. We're right here. Please consider a resolution for an immediate ceasefire in Gaza. It's the least you could do. The absolute bare minimum.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Dr. Omer Abid.
I ask for you all to also look at me too, each and every one of you. I condemn what Hamas did on October 7th. Every single one of us condemns that. We all support the rabbi who said that no one should be scapegoated in Ann Arbor. That's not what this discussion is about. This discussion is to stop genocide. The mayor, please hold the applause. The mayor mentioned to me, or mentioned to all of us, that we can't deal with all ills. No one is saying for you all to deal with all ills. This is genocide. And I'm sorry, Aisha, please resign from the Human Rights Organization if you don't understand that 880 scholars of genocide, Holocaust, have written a statement on October 15th that they are worried that this is a genocide. One of them, and many of them have actually mentioned that this is a textbook case of genocide. Like the Jewish Israeli scholar of Holocaust and genocide studies, Mr. Siegel, who's at Stockton University. Omar Bartov, who is, according to the Holocaust Museum, he's one of the best. He said that this is amounting to genocide. So you all say that come to us when we were in pain. Well, there's infinitely nothing else more in pain that we're in pain in than in genocide. So listen to us about that. And Erica Briggs, you need to apologize for us. The beheaded stories, Max Blumenthal, acclaimed Jewish historian who has contributed to the New York Times, who's contributed to the Los Angeles Times, he has shown how that's false. The White House has retracted that, the whole 40 babies thing. That's what led to Wadia Fayoum to be stabbed by his landlord 26 times to death after the landlord gave that boy toys. Days after he heard that fake 40 baby story, then he stabbed him. And all these things are, a lot of these things are lies. Read Max Blumenthal's thing. But you know what's that lie? Those babies, hundreds of them, thousands of them who've been murdered by our tax dollars, including many who have been suffocated to death as they was pulled out of those machines. And if the rabbi he was mentioning that there's no mention of the hostages or whatever, fine, add that in. Add that the hostages should be released. Add that the Palestinian captives should be released. So we're all in agreement.
Thank you.
We all are just going to have to get rid of people who are standing silent, whether they're at this level or at the senatorial level or any level. All of us just need to get rid of them, or else we're complicit in genocide.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Mojan Slavabea Safani.
Thanks, everybody, for showing up tonight. I am honored to be in your company. I was feeling very lonely until you arrived, and I thank you for that. This city council is very resistant to this idea, and by resisting such simple, brainless, absolute minimum thing they can say at a time of a genocide, they are losing their credibility in the eyes of their constituents. Young people here, old people here can see you drag your feet and hesitate to say, stop killing children. They can see that, and they can see that you are doing it and you are losing your credibility. You show them that you have no moral integrity, and this is sickening us. It is sickening to see. And as Dr. Omar just said, I am also asking Ms. Aisha to resign from Human Rights Commission, because if she doesn't have enough mind of her own to say this is a genocide, if she doesn't run and pass a resolution herself without us trying to push her, if she doesn't do it on her own, then she has no place on a Human Rights Commission. When I first came to this town, I thought, what a wonderful place. They have a Human Rights Commission. And I immediately went there to say, do something about Palestine. Cut off the money from sending it to Israel. Don't give Israelis guns. And what did I find? Wall-to-wall Zionists who will do nothing until they're allowed to do it. And they will never be allowed to say one word for Palestinian rights. Another point I wanted to make is that while you guys were bickering about mowing the lawn, all I could think about is this procedure that the IDF performed way before October 7th. They called it mowing of the lawn. What does that mean? That means they will barge in and murder a few hundred Palestinian children, and then they would go out. That was their idea of mowing the lawn. All the time they were doing that, I was here. I was telling you about it. And I was telling you to stop it. And you did nothing. But I tell you something, Mr. Mayor. I tell you something, Ms. Ghazi, Edwin, and the rest of you who are so ashamed to even look at me. And you should be ashamed. I tell you one thing. You see this crowd here? There is hundreds like it across the United States. We will keep coming here. We will force you to embrace your own humanity and your own dignity by passing resolutions to stop this genocide. Stop this genocide right now. Pass the resolution.
Thank you.
And no more military aid to Israel.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Blaine Coleman.
I do not stand with both sides. I don't ever stand with the slave holder. I stand with the slave. I don't ever stand with the truly Nazi state of Israel, which has butchered 20,000 plus Palestinians with 2,000-pound U.S. bombs. No, I stand with the children of Gaza, the children of Gaza who have survived, the children of Gaza who are still alive so far. This big turnout is just the beginning. It tells me, speaking for myself, that from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. As a prior speaker said, Ms. Hassoune, Ann Arbor City Council does approve resolutions on international matters when it feels like it. For example, its resolution on Iraq in 2002. Let me add, there's more. Ann Arbor City Council felt like passing resolutions regarding Burma, so it did. It wanted to pass a resolution on South Africa, so it did. It wanted to pass a resolution on Wendy's international labor practices, so it did. Ann Arbor City Council also wanted to pass a resolution on atomic weapons, and it did. It wanted to pass a resolution against genetically modified food, so it did. And you can damn well pass a resolution against military aid to Israel, as we have been asking you for 20 years. And of course, a resolution for a total and permanent ceasefire in Gaza, of course, that should go without saying. No, today you see a city council fully united to murder entire city blocks of the Gaza Strip with their tax dollars going to Israel and their political support going to Israel. You see a city council united. And I don't want that kind of unity. Let's have a little division here. Don't be united for murdering whole hospitals full of babies in the Gaza Strip. Don't be united for genocide by Israel that you pay for. No. Don't be united to murder 20,000 Palestinians, including 7,000 who are buried under the rubble where only hungry dogs can reach them, where only rodents can reach them. Just pass the resolution, you worthless bastards.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Bashar Halak. Bashar Halak.
Bashar! Bashar!
Our next speaker is Shima Sagaliyani.
Good evening, members of the council. Thank you for letting me speak. My name is Shima Sadegiani. Please remember how to pronounce it correctly for the future. Like many of the people here tonight, I'm here to present and hopefully inspire you all to consider passing the resolution we have drafted that asks for a permanent and immediate ceasefire in Gaza. as well as puts forward a commitment to combating anti-Semitism, Islamophobia, and anti-Palestinian, anti-Arab bigotry within Ann Arbor, as well as divestment from Israeli companies. When we came to you at the last City Council meeting and in City Council meetings prior, you told us that a resolution like this would not fall within your jurisdiction. This is a sentiment that has been repeated tonight. However, historically, your previous actions, as the previous speaker talked about, speaks differently. In 1986, you passed a resolution prohibiting the use of city funds for the purchase of goods produced in apartheid South Africa. And again, in 1996, you passed a resolution barring purchases from businesses in Burma. What is the difference here? Why are you so unwilling to act here? Local actions have international implications, and by passing the resolution we are proposing tonight, we can signal the public sentiment to our elected politicians in order to put pressure on passing a similar ceasefire and divestment act on a larger scale. I'm an Iranian-American woman. My parents left Iran primarily due to the dictatorial, violent, and repressive regime that had come to power, restricting life, opportunities, and freedom. Throughout my life, I have participated heavily in movements fighting for the national, ethnic, linguistic, and gender equality of my people both within and outside of Iran. I bring up my own personal story because this struggle for equality, which personally affects me, cannot and should not be separated from the Palestinian cause for liberation from occupation and genocide. The Palestinian cause extends far past its own geography. It must be a shared struggle among all people who are pushing and striving for liberation and freedom. I urge you all to see your shared responsibility to end this genocide. The time to act is now. Every day that goes by, more and more people in Gaza are killed, more homes are destroyed, more generations are completely wiped out. The number of Palestinian deaths have surpassed those within Russia and Ukraine, as well as in Afghanistan, both of which are conflicts that have raged for much longer. What is most important is that the bombs that Israel drops on people in Gaza are American bombs, paid for by American tax dollars. We are enabling this genocide, and we thus have the power and the responsibility to push for this genocide to end. And you, as Ann Arbor City Council members, have a duty and a responsibility to listen to your constituents, really listen. We have spoke and spoke again and again tonight and passed this resolution to indicate to all that Ann Arbor stands on the side of justice and liberation. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Atia Templeton.
Hello, all. I must say that I am quite disappointed by what the mayor and some city council members have chosen to share in regards to the call for a resolution to call for a ceasefire in Gaza and the censorship that has followed. I understand that you have rules and standards, but you must understand that generations of people share in the struggle for Palestinian liberation. As an Ann Arbor stakeholder, it is apparent to me that our representatives are not listening to my fellow stakeholders, some of whom came together to draft a resolution for you. Palestinians are dying by the hundreds every day in the most inhumane conditions. I also think about how some 47% of the population in Gaza are children, because there have been several similar attacks on Gazans in the last 2 decades alone. Meaning most of the people that were alive in Gaza prior to October have survived at least 4 bombardments prior to the current one. Additionally, Israel has arrested hundreds of people despite age without charges and have held them for literal years, stealing the youth of many. They have stated clearly that their goal is to rid the Palestinian land of its people. I saw a video of a 13-year-old girl whose home was bombed and collapsed on top of her and her family, and she asked those who could help to prioritize her family members to be saved before her own self. It's heartbreaking to witness the genocide happening right now, but it feels worse knowing that our representatives will not respond as they have been called to by the majority of their constituents. Yet thousands of Ann Arbor residents continue to participate in the peaceful movement around the world calling for Palestinian liberation. There's far too much evidence available that has disproven much of the propaganda shared by you and Israeli officials have touted to justify breaking international law. So amplify our voices here and that of the many allies pleading for humanity, and just pass the resolution. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Ahmed Ghanim. Ahmed Ghanim. Is he on the phone?
Whoever's name is Ahmad, you're welcome to come. Doesn't matter if your last name is not the same thing, but you can come. I can be here. All right, go ahead.
Caller with the phone number ending in 035.
No, thank you.
Come on.
Mayor, he was on the call. I think he might have hung up.
It's by phone, you have to call.
Do you know when he was on the call?
He was just here. I think so.
You're all Dems.
I don't see him anymore.
Okay. Our next speaker is Rebecca Kamaluddin. Thank you.
Mayor, Mr. Ghanim is back on.
Ah, very good. Thank you. Mr. Ghanim.
Caller with the phone number 035. Go ahead. Press star 6 to unmute your phone. Caller with the phone number 035. Press star 6 to unmute your phone. Caller with the phone number 035. Press star 6 to unmute your phone to speak.
Hello?
Go ahead.
Hello?
Yes, we can hear you.
Me? Yeah, sorry about that.
That's okay.
So this meeting has been going for almost 3 hours now. And we know that on average, a Palestinian child is killed every 10 minutes. This means that since the start of this meeting till now, around 24 innocent Palestinian children have lost their lives. This is the reality that we are dealing with right now. When people talk about politics, when people talk about ceasefire, the reality is that children are dying right now. 24 children, around average 24 children are killed while we are talking right now. And because of that, I'm not just going to talk to the members of the council of the city, because I think the council of the city have heard enough. I want to talk to the people like me, people like those who stayed on this call for around 3 hours right now. I know it's overwhelming. I know it's tough. I know that every single day we get a phone call, we get a request, call this, sign this, attend this march. And I know it's not easy because we have to balance our life and our commitment with all this. But for one thing, if a child, such as the 13-year-old Omar Hamada from Gaza, can endure an airstrike and can undergo surgery to amputate his leg without anesthesia, I think we can dedicate 1 hour a day to stand and advocate for the voiceless, for the children of Gaza. So my message to you, not to the council anymore, My message to you that you're listening to me. My message to you that you stay 3 hours, taking this time from your family and from your life. Please, please keep going. Keep calling. Keep marching. The lives of thousands of children might depend on you. So don't let them down. You are their last hope. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Keep going.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Rebecca Kamaluddin.
Mayor, I was expecting her on the phone. and
thank you again.
I don't see her.
Has she been on for a bit?
Yeah, I've not seen her.
Okay.
I have the next caller.
Okay. Our next speaker is Rabab Khattab.
Caller with the phone number ending in 525, press star 6 to unmute your phone. Go ahead.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Hello. Okay, great. I want to thank you all for for having me. I want to thank everybody for taking the time and coming in and holding on line to voice their opinions. I want to echo the voices of my fellow Michiganders and ask the Ann Arbor City Council to introduce a ceasefire resolution. To date, over 20,000 people have been murdered in Gaza. Entire bloodlines have been wiped out. Last week, I saw facts about this genocide that shook me. The average age of all Palestinians murdered in this genocide is 5 years old. 5. After the recent brief ceasefire, Israel has only continued bombarding Palestinian men, women, and children, even worse than before, if that's even possible. Although these actions take place on an international stage, what is happening in Gaza still should be a local concern. The bombs that Israel drops on people in Gaza are American bombs paid for by American tax dollars that we should be instead using to improve our communities here, but instead they're being used to destroy lives. We are enabling this genocide. And when I say we, I mean you, me, and every single person that pays taxes. But we also have the power to push for this genocide to end. The City Council has a tradition of being on the right side of history, as the gentleman and young lady prior to me spoke about, including when it passed a resolution prohibiting the use of city funds for the purchase of goods produced in apartheid South Africa in 1986, and when it passed a resolution barring purchases from businesses in Burma. You, as Ann Arbor City Council members, have a duty and a responsibility to listen to your constituents, to introduce and pass a resolution to indicate to all that Ann Arbor stands on the side of justice and liberation. If Detroit, Hamtramck, and Dearborn see that it is in their jurisdiction and can introduce and then pass these resolutions, so can Ann Arbor. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Tom Stolberg.
Mayor, I don't believe Mr. Stolberg is on the line.
Our next speaker is Uriel Zeitz.
Hello, my name is Oriel. I'm a proud member of the Ann Arbor Jewish community and a student athlete at the University of Michigan. I urge the city to introduce the proposed resolution affirming the city of Ann Arbor's commitment and support for an immediate and permanent ceasefire in Gaza. Ann Arbor would join many of other cities, both in Michigan and nationally, such as our neighbors of Dearborn, Dearborn Heights, and Hamtramck, and others across the country like Oakland, California, and Seattle, Washington, who pass ceasefire resolutions. As a concerned resident of Ann Arbor, I believe it is both timely and imperative for our city to take a stand in calling for a humanitarian ceasefire. By introducing and endorsing such a resolution, Ann Arbor would be reaffirming its commitment to humanitarian principles and the well-being of all people affected in this conflict, a majority of whom are women and children. Instead of continuing its complacency in the ongoing bloodshed in Gaza, I urge the city of Ann Arbor to prioritize spending our taxpayer dollars on things that create stronger and more healthy communities, such as student loan forgiveness, improved housing and food assistance, better infrastructure, and enhanced public housing. The reallocation of our taxpayer dollars away from the Israeli occupation and towards these initiatives is imperative and what your taxpayers are asking for. As a Jewish member of this community, I must emphasize that this council should reject the weaponization, distortion, and politicalization of anti-Semitism that is being used to suppress the voices of people within this community who are advocating for the human rights and dignity of Palestinian people. Tonight, this council has expressed its concern over the well-being of the people within this community. I believe this resolution would be a powerful step in helping bridge the racial, cultural, and religious divide that is currently creating strife within this community. Thousands of members within this community, including myself, continue to stand against the genocide occurring against the Palestinian people, against mass displacement, collective punishment, and military occupation. By introducing this resolution to call for a ceasefire in Gaza, you will be supporting the wants and needs of Jewish, Muslim, Palestinian, and Arab community members. In efforts to foster a community of safety, belonging, and love in Ann Arbor, you must not remain silent in global injustices. Ceasefire now in Gaza.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Jabin Sibiakwi.
Jewish Americans are getting arrested calling for ceasefire. That's right. You guys are listening to them. Like hundreds.
Mayor, I don't see this caller on the line. They're supposed to be on the phone.
Has he been on the phone for a bit?
No, I don't have this caller on the line.
Okay. Pardon me? Yeah. See no one further. Public comment is closed. May I have a motion to adjourn, please? Moved by Councilmember Cornell, second by Councilmember Iyer. Discussion?
Somebody at the top of the...
He's on the. He was called. Well, if he's in the room, then he's in the room. But no, I'm sorry. He's not been. We have his number, and he has not been. He has not been on the line. I had Cornell and.
So I have Jabin Siddiqui on my text message. She's been waiting on the line.
What's? Thank you for saying so. What is the last digits of his telephone number? Her. My apologies.
You can just put the phone against the thing.
The last four, 4934.
Thank you.
Is she on the computer?
We don't have them. We don't have her on Zoom.
Bring the phone up here and let her speak.
If that's okay.
I have someone on the phone number 969.
We have someone with a phone number 969 raising their hand. Is that possibly her? Thank you.
He's my brother. Let's go.
Of Dems wanted. 71% of Michigan Dems. Please listen to open comment.
All right. Thank you. Cornell, motion to adjourn by Cornell and by Iyer. Discussion? All in favor? Opposed? We're adjourned.